Okay. All right, let's try now. Okay, can you hear me better now, Greg?
Yeah, I can, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Okay.
It's very echoey, for sure.
Yeah, very well. Yours is really clear, James. Good afternoon, everyone. This is a work session for Basalt Council. We are going to be taking up the topic of a broadband regional project, which is going to involve Basalt and extension of trunk fiber. So it's going to be a fascinating kind of conversation to have. So I will turn this over to Ryan Mahoney, our town manager, and Jeff Kruger from Pitkin County, who's on. So thank you, gentlemen, and look forward to the discussion.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. I'll go ahead and introduce Jeff. Jeff is an employee of Pitkin County, and he is in charge of basically all of their communications infrastructure. When he gets on, he can give us his exact title, but he's been extremely supportive and ambitious in the deployment of optic cable. And the point of that ultimately is to, basically get broadband into our communities and hopefully add redundancy into our infrastructure so that you get a cut in a line and you're able to maintain service even in those circumstances. And so, we've had discussions dating back a few years on broadband. And as far as the town's perspective, looking at broadband and trying to get additional fiber into the town has been a priority. It's in our strategic framework and then in our strategic work plan for 2021. And sometime in December, we jumped on a call. Jeff, myself, Snowmass Village is involved, Northwest COG, and the Department of Local Affairs at the state level. And there is, I left one entity out, and that is Holy Cross Energy. And there's a great opportunity that's essentially falling in our lap here. And I don't want to underplay that because a whole lot of work has gone into it, mostly by others, and Jeff is one of those people. And Holy Cross Energy is doing a fiber optic build, and the purpose of their build is to interconnect their facilities up and down the valley. But Bob Farmer is their employee who's in charge of this, and he's very much interested in creating partnerships and seeing if there are opportunities to, basically come off of the line they're building and to, create opportunities for towns ultimately having an open access to build out fiber and, have competition. And that helps, I think, reduce prices overall in the long run, ideally, and then, just offer different options to people. And so what we're going to talk about tonight is a fiber build that would basically be a partnership with Department of Local Affairs, providing grant funding through the state. Of course, using the Holy Cross fiber as, the basic conduit that would allow us to communicate back and forth down the valley. And then this build would be within the town, sort of a Pitkin County, town of Basalt, and Holy Cross Energy effort. But DOLA's interest is to really see that there's regional cooperation. And so they would be helping finance some of Snowmass Village's efforts as well for the build that they're doing off the Holy Cross Energy line. So pretty big project, but a really great opportunity for us. And what we wanted to talk to you all about tonight, the punchline is we, in our budget, have about $35,000 budgeted. And initially that was to kind of take a look at doing a study looking for opportunities. opportunity came knocking. And what we would like to do is participate in this build and add about $60,000 that is currently unbudgeted, but adds a whole lot of value that far exceeds that investment. And we're going to have Jeff kind of walk us through what these improvements look like. And what's really exciting about it is it provides essentially a backbone for us to kind of build off of. And so it may not immediately light up, certain locations, but it does bring fiber down into the south side. It brings fiber into the downtown core. It brings fiber by town hall. It brings fiber by some of our underserved trailer parks. It brings fiber by the schools. And so it's a really neat opportunity. So without further ado, Jeff, who we can't see, believes that he can share his screen with us.
Apologize for that. Again, I've got a webcam issue that just started today. And so, but anyway, hopefully audio is working well. Again, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ryan, for the introduction. And I appreciate the opportunity to present this to you today. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. So, like Ryan said, this is really an incredible opportunity for the Roaring Fork region. And this is a broadband project, middle mile broadband project going up the entire valley that's going to provide connections into the Northwest Colorado Council of Governments. So the NWCCOG Project Thor network. So we will be interfacing with Project Thor in both Glenwood Springs and Aspen. And also it builds a very high capacity backbone infrastructure, again, going up the entire valley, which is 80 gigabits per second. Today, we have about 10 gigs per second with a CenturyLink circuit. Let me move on to the next chart. So this all started with Holy Cross Energy, and Holy Cross recently announced their 100 by 30 program. And this is to be on 100% renewables by the year 2030. In order to get there, they need all of their infrastructure fiber connected. And this mainly has to do with how they get renewables in and out of their system, how they control battery storage, and other types of systems, and do it fast and do it efficiently. The end result with that is reduced carbon emissions and lower costs. They have, the board approved the construction last year, and it's planned for the summer of, to begin in the summer of 2021. But again, it's going to be aerial fiber on their existing power lines going all the way from Glenwood Springs to Aspen. Now, given that that is happening, really the region kind of came together, as Ryan said, Holy Cross inviting other counties, municipalities to the table to build on that fiber initiative. So what we plan to do is build an 80G dedicated network going all the way up the valley. As I said earlier, we have a 10G today. This is a huge pipe that will provide broadband services well into the future. Again, it connects to Project Thor in both Glenwood and Aspen. So it makes it highly resilient. So if we get a fiber cut anywhere along that path, we continue to operate, whether it be from the Glenwood Springs Meet Me Center or the Aspen Meet Me Center. And we also plan to expand on that build with fiber into both Aspen, Snowmass, and Basalt. Let me go to the next one. So what's really all predicating this is a DOLA broadband grant. Governor Polis, he recently allocated $60 million for broadband. It does require a full EIAF grant application and review. We actually have our grant application written and ready to go. The real great piece of information here is it's a 50% match. So, and it covers all types of broadband infrastructure, whether that be equipment purchases, construction, fiber lease. So they will pay 50% of all those activities or services. Right now, the current round has no deadline, but it is basically on a first come, first service until the money runs out. So right now, time is really of the essence. There's heavy competition. This covers the entire state. We alone are putting in about a $500K grant. Snowmass Village has already put in a $350K grant. So between the two of those, we're consuming nearly $1 million. If we were awarded these, nearly $1 million of that $60 million available. The county itself, because of this, basically we did get verbal approval today. I presented at our board today. We did get a verbal approval, and we do plan an emergency resolution on February 10th. And let me bring up a Google Earth map showing the fiber. And this is where I really plan to walk all of you through what we're doing. But can everyone see this? Good. So the fiber starts in Glenwood Springs, runs all the way up Valley to a substation in Basalt, continues to go up Valley to a substation in Snowmass Village, and up Valley again to their substation in Aspen. And this is all aerial fiber. It goes on their existing power lines. They have the right of way to run it. It's 144 strands of fiber. The partnership that we're creating plans to lease 6 strands of those fibers going up Valley. And let's start here in Basalt. So the plan in Basalt is to go on the south side, along Southside Drive, all the way to the high school, and also to Basalt Vista. So Holy Cross is actually covering part of this cost because they want to connect Basalt Vista in order to evaluate some grid algorithms that they're running kind of as a test case or a test scenario in order to improve energy efficiency here, with the goal being a complete net zero, all electric community. We also plan on hitting our telecommunications shop right here. Going on the other side of the highway, we plan to create a loop, and this is what Ryan referred to earlier. So this is really important for the town of Basalt. By creating a loop, we allow fiber cuts to not impose services, not eliminate services, if you will, if there is a fiber cut. So there could be a fiber cut anywhere along this line, and we can still get serviced from the Basalt Meeting Center. So this will do a combination of things. We plan on using some conduit and as well as some aerial. So the heavy blue line here is aerial, which is on existing power lines. We come by the school district, shoot up to kind of the main business district, and then shoot over to Town Hall. And from there, we go into a small section of conduit again, go aerial, go conduit all the way up past the wilds to the substation, and that creates our main loop. Now there's a secondary loop, mainly that kind of goes through this upper portion of the Basalt Business District, comes up, this is all aerial again, and then goes this way, connecting to the main loop. So again, if there's a fiber cut anywhere along here, we have resiliency. One of the questions, or one of the issues, I think, to the town council is there's a single power pole here that is a problem child. And it currently cannot support fiber, running fiber on it today. So, but in order to replace that power pole is around a 50 to 100K replacement cost. It's very expensive. According to Holy Cross Energy, it requires what's called a live replacement due to the feeds on it. So it's an expensive pole to replace. The good news out of all that, though, is that DOLA is willing to pay half that cost. So it's an opportunity, if you want to take advantage of it, to get a brand new pole that will service this area for many years to come at half the cost of what it would normally cost to replace it.
Jeff, could I jump in and just say something about that really quickly?
Sure.
Yeah, one of the things as we were going through and doing some of this planning with regard to the route is that I had advocated for looking at replacement of that pole. I'd been working with the chamber and what was Cedar Networks, now Ting. The chamber had been, trying to get an additional or just improved service into their building. And the crux of that, and the way that we were going to do that is to replace that pole. And at $100,000, it just didn't, it's just out of the question for Ting to make that investment, and for the town, it's just something that we'd have to really plan for and put out into the future. With this opportunity, getting half of it paid for, it really allows us to look at this central business district along Midland and offer some different options to them to be able to light that up. And as you know, the chamber's been working really hard to create sort of a business hub and resource center on Midland Avenue that would really benefit from having better service, and then I think some of the other businesses along there as well. So thanks, Jeff.
Sure. So yeah, that really kind of covers the entire Basalt fiber bill. I open it up to questions if you want. I do have some cost data to show, and I'm also happy to show you kind of what's going on up Valley if you're interested as well, between Snowmass Village and City of Aspen.
Jeff, could you talk a little bit about what Pitkin County has been doing over the last few years? It seems to me that Pitkin County is really concentrated on trying to create redundancy. And I think that there was some thought that, the investment in microwave was sort of the end solution for Pitkin County, where my understanding is that was a solution to account for cuts in the line and also to be able to serve internet to our rural customers, say for example, up near Rudai Reservoir and such. Could you?
Yeah, happy to do that, Ryan. So the Pitkin County broadband initiative started about 3 years ago now. And its focus was on providing services to the underserved and unserved areas of the county. Not necessarily the urban areas, but really the rural areas. And the way we went about doing that, and because of the remoteness of so many homes in these areas, the only really feasible solution was doing a wireless broadband solution. And so we used our county mountaintop communications infrastructure and built on top of that to provide a microwave backhaul to all of these sites and then from there, do a wireless access point from our tower to a homeowner or a business. And we started out pretty small. We started out with tower sites at Crown Mountain, Williams Peak, and Elephant. So Elephant serves the Crystal River Valley. Crown Mountain kind of serves West Cypress, Missouri Heights area. And then Williams serves Old Snowmass, as well as some of Woody Creek. So, and then and that was 2 years ago now, when we did the 3 towers. Since then, we've expanded it to add 2 more towers, one being Jackrabbit, which is in Snowmass Village, and the second one being Ludi, which is in the Frying Pan. And so that one seems to have the most interest right now. Of course, a lot of Frying Pan folks are getting HughesNet or nothing. And so they've really been beating down the doors, wanting us to get wireless broadband into that valley. And I am happy to say that we now finally kind of went through some of our test hurdles and issues we were having, but just in the last couple of weeks, we are now being able to offer service into the Frying Pan. So we will continue to expand that network into rural areas. There's other sites planned as well. In addition, we've been teaming with Garfield County on a similar infrastructure plan where they want to provide wireless broadband into some of their rural areas. So they really have been, taking our learning experiences, if you will, and applying it over to that side. But
So-
we will continue, like I said, we will continue to expand the wireless system. The beauty of having this fiber system is that we have additional ingress points into our microwave backhaul. Right now, we have a single point of failure. Everything comes out of Aspen. So this is our North 40 Meet Me Center, which is in our 911 dispatch center. And from there, we microwave it out, but it's a single point of failure today. So having this fiber will actually provide additional ingress points, one being the Basalt MMC right here. And we have a microwave connection going from here over to Crown Mountain. Another one up valley is at Snowmass, and we will be running fiber to our Jackrabbit communication site. So we will have 3 ingress points for fiber into our wireless broadband backhaul system. So that's a good question.
So Jeff, this is Bill Kane. Could you guys comment on what you think may likely transpire on the sort of internet service provider front? Who is likely to pick this up and operate it and provide, residential service? Is this Holy Cross going to do this, or they'll put it out to bid, or?
Yeah, I think it's from my perspective, this is really up to the town of Basalt. It's my, this to me should be an open access network, which would allow multiple ISPs to come in. It provides competition, reduces costs. So you could lease lines to various ISPs, and then they in turn could build on top of that. So an example might be a small cell carrier wanting to come in, lease some lines, and put in small cells throughout the town. And I can tell you too what Pickens County did. So for our wireless broadband system, we actually hired a network operator. And so on a revenue sharing basis. So for every subscriber that we have on our wireless network, a certain percentage goes to the network operator, a certain percentage goes to the ISP, and a certain percentage goes to the county. And on that particular system, we have two ISPs. So it's a fully open access network with two ISPs. The network operator in turn manages the ISPs, the county does not. And the reason why we did that is we really didn't want interaction with an ISP or the customers. We didn't want to be getting calls in the middle of the night from, when there's problems, and there are. And so we wanted that separation. The county wanted that separation between us and the ISPs. And so that's worked out very well for us. There's obviously many other models that can go into this. That's one possible model. But yeah, I think, once this kind of goes in, it's almost a field of dreams in a way. Once you build it, they will come, and I truly believe that. So.
And I think, Bill, one of the questions that I got early on with this is, well, how do you go out and market something like that? And I think that's something for us to talk about. I think that we already have one ISP in town, and that's Ting, and they have fiber to the town hall, to the schools, to the PD, and to Public Works, and then they also serve Willits Town Center, and I believe they have sort of an exclusive agreement at the moment with the tree farm, and so they're here, and so I think they're interested in making further investments. By doing this, you're creating a backbone. Then it's quite possible that instead of the town having to put dollars in the future into building out, say, into the South Side neighborhood, you have a private ISP do that, and then they just lease the dark fiber, as Jeff suggested. But you save them a whole lot of upfront cost because this backbone is already there. And we know that's been an impediment. This pole that I talked about earlier, that was kind of the holdup to get that business district lit up from Ting's perspective. So, I think it's a start. It doesn't solve all of the issues. There may be future investments that the town may want to look at, or enticements for private partners, but we do know that the governor seems very bullish on funding broadband, and so seems like a pretty good timing, pretty good bang for our buck, certainly.
Great.
Yeah, we have had also another point to that. We have had discussions with DOLA on exactly what we're planning on doing, and so far they are very supportive of this project. They like to see collaborations. They don't like to see single entities coming in and trying to do something on their own. And so so collaborations have more weight. And this one has four municipalities collaborating.
David Knight had a question.
Oh, no.
This is for Jeff or Ryan. You guys can just kind of both tag team this, but are there any relatively quicker opportunities once this is all built to get connectivity potentially to the underserved parts of the community, where there's not a lot of internet access already, with using wireless and maybe partnering with libraries, school district, things like that? Do you guys envision anything like that?
Jeff, I know you met with the school district shortly after we had talked the last time. Did you learn anything from that conversation?
Yeah, really, other than they're putting in their own wireless network to cover the Basalt Mobile Home Park, and that's actually already in. Mm-hmm. And we're kind of waiting on a couple of things before we can turn it on, get it active. So having fiber over here would really help them a lot getting, and then the other piece of that is we're actually running fiber right over this mobile home park. And so I think you could see a breakout splice box that could potentially feed into a wireless network, or even provide fiber into some of these areas, do a fiber to the premise as an example. Also, the school district is in partnership with Picken County, is actually running fiber, or not fiber, but wireless over to this mobile home park here in El Jebel. So this is a huge area. And there's also the section, a newer section over here. And so there's, we've been working with them to get 4 actual tower, or kind of small little towers located where they can put their wireless access points in order to feed this area. So there's another opportunity in the future. I think hopefully if we could get fiber coming off this line going into El Jebel. So those were the main things we talked about, Ryan.
Okay, no, that's great. And David, to answer your question from the town perspective is, I think we'd want to have those conversations with the school or the library or other, other partners as well. We have not had them yet. So those things would be, a future conversation.
Sure.
But it seems to me that, and you probably know this better than me, fiber is king. I mean, that's the future. We're going to need it to support all of our activities. And so it seems like this is low-hanging fruit for us with, I don't want to call it a leap of faith, but, I think we have a good solid understanding that this is the way that we need to go. And, the opportunity just happened to come along at a pretty good time.
Yeah, this is an investment in our future. It's ultimately, going to make our service better in the long run with 5G or whatever the technology is, right? Because fiber, it's a lot bigger pipe than we've got going around now for bandwidth.
And that's exactly right. All these new services need fiber. They can't run on wireless backhaul. So.
Jeff, did you say you had some of the spreadsheet of the cost breakdown?
I do.
Could we show that to the council?
Yeah, are there any more questions on this?
Oh, at least that's one.
This is just more of a general question. I think you said that this was all going to be aerial, but I know, undergrounding is sort of the wave of the future. Are there kind of any ways that the aerial lines are being addressed from a resiliency perspective, wildfires, that sort of thing?
Yeah, there is. It's a good question. I mean, there is more risk with aerial. This is not all, there's higher risk, but there's lower cost. So that's the trade-off. And not all of this, though, is aerial. Like, for instance, the south side going to the high school, this is all buried. There is no aerial over here to attach to. So this section is all buried. There is aerial, just the blue line, kind of the dark blue line that you see here is aerial, and the green line is aerial. So, and that's mainly due to cost. I'll show you some numbers. Snowmass Village, as an example, they have to do all conduit, all buried, and their costs are extremely high to do that. So,
Jeff, I think it's important to mention that there's no new poles going in. This is all on existing infrastructure as it relates to the aerial. I believe I'm right about that. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Yeah.
No new poles except this one right here.
Which is a replacement,
14,882.
right?
That one is the problem child to get this loop.
Yeah.
So we want, so I'm gonna show you our cost spreadsheet. And this is kind of a, you know, kind of a decision point here. Let me bring it up.
I just have one quick question before you dive into those numbers.
Sure.
Is there, I see the loop and I understand the way that's doing. Is there any way that other neighborhoods on that corner of Basalt, selfishly, would be able to tap into that and extend it down? I know there's people up the hill that would be interested in it, and I know like going to the right from those final X's on Sopris and Homestead up the hill.
Yeah, I think what we envision this as kind of a starting point.
Okay,
And so there would be splice points at each one of these pole locations, such that if you wanted to build a stub, you know, go anywhere with it as an example.
that's all I was checking. No,
Yeah. So if you wanted to take this one, for example, and come, you know, start here, come over here, as long as there's a pole there,
yep,
you can get there.
okay.
So the idea is, you know, this is not set in stone. This would be something that would be built on as, you know, kind of laterals or stubs, if you will, off of these poles.
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right, let me go back to the cost spreadsheet. So let's start with the Basalt High School. So I think as we said, that is all underground conduit. So it has a little higher price tag. Total cost is about $90K. DOLA, with their matching grant, will cover 45K of it. Pickens gonna cover the other 45K. And it's mainly because it gets us our connection to our telecommunications facility. And it's also, Holy Cross is contributing in order to get a connection over to Basalt Vista.
I think that $0 contribution from Basalt, I think I can get that past the council here. I think.
Okay, I thought Basalt would like that. The next one is the Basalt Town Loop without the pole replacement. So that one problem child pole we talked about earlier, if you do not replace that, here are the costs. So total cost to build that fiber loop is $138K. DOLA is going to cover half of it. Pickens would cover 35, Basalt would cover 35. The next one is with the pole replacement. So the
Can I
pole
ask a quick
replacement.
clarifying question, if you don't mind? I'm sorry to interrupt. Without the pole replacement, you're simply not doing the green part. Is that correct?
We are doing the green part, it's just not connected.
It's just not connected. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. There's,
stubs
so
out.
the green part would end right here and end here. So it wouldn't be a
Okay.
full loop. So it wouldn't pass over that pole, it would not be a full loop.
Does that mean it's
And
not?
what's the benefit of that?
The benefit is resiliency, and you get a new power pole that will last you another 50 years.
And it gets the downtown core the ability to get, you know, broadband access.
So
Yeah, this town core would not have resiliency.
if that pole's not replaced, does it function?
Correct.
It doesn't or does?
It does not. You don't get the broadband, the fiber into the downtown. So, you know, basically at some point in time, we'll be faced with potentially the full cost of pole replacement in order to do this versus it being picked up partially by a grant. But what the immediate effect is so I gave the example earlier of the chamber wanting to hook up as a, you know, the resource center and hub that they're doing, they would just basically stay on the same internet service they have today, which of according to them, is inadequate.
So basically no change for some of the important people.
No change for some of the businesses. So it's it's an economic development piece for the town.
How is that different though than the question that Ryan asked earlier about running those lines out, with the demonstration with the yellow line?
Yeah, so that if you just stubbed it out, then you could theoretically say, okay, some ISP come in and put that, you pay to put it in. Well, what we've seen is they won't pay to put it in. That pole itself is too much of a hurdle to make business sense for an ISP to serve, a handful of businesses. The return on investment isn't there for them. And that's just the stark reality of what you deal with when you have the private interests come in. They've got to look at how does it benefit them? How many customers are they going to be able to get on a given line?
So I guess I still don't understand though how that's different than an ISP coming and running that line, farther up into the neighborhoods or whatever.
Well, instead of 5 buildings, you potentially have 40. So you can pick up more customers.
Oh, okay. So you're saying by not having that one pole, you're basically just missing 5 customers as opposed to.
Yeah, you're kind of missing this whole section here, so.
And when we've talked to Ting in the past, that was the crux. That pole is just, it's got a lot of stuff on it. So it's just not something that they were able to do, when we spoke with them last. And so by doing it this way, then I think it opens up that possibility for these businesses. And then, that might mean the hotel can pick up. So, you're getting, a decent service there. And then as Jeff said, I guess some of these businesses, or excuse me, some of the residences, as you follow that line, at least could potentially benefit from that too.
And is that private property?
It's on private property, but it's on they have an easement. So there's an existing pole there today.
Yeah, it's in right of way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me go back to the spreadsheet. So with the pole replacement, total cost is 253, goes up from 138 to 253. DOLA would cover 126. Pickens County would cover the same as with the pole versus no pole at 34K, and Basalt would make up the difference at 92K. The third item to talk about is the library. So the library would require conduit to get over there. Cost to run conduit for the library is 33K. DOLA would pay half of that. Basalt then would need to come up with the other half. So total costs, 34K, no pole replacement, 92K with pole replacement, 108K with pole replacement and library conduit.
Can you address those maintenance costs?
Yeah, so maintenance cost is the cost to maintain the fiber. And this is something that actually is subject to DOLA. It's a 20-year, this cost is over a 20-year period. So to maintain that fiber for 20 years with pole replacement or without for that matter is $13,000. So this would be amortized, this would be split out. The actual number is this number divided by 20 on a per year basis.
Okay, thank you.
And then I think even further, Elise, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, that wasn't just the town share of maintenance, that would be for the group to work out and
Correct.
Work on that, so.
Okay, thank you.
$693.05 a year.
So pretty manageable.
Well, Ryan, this looks like a whale of a good addition to the town. Were you looking for just kind of general feedback from council? Where did you want to go with this?
Yeah, you know, I think time is of the essence. And so, you know, I think tonight what I was looking for was a general nod. If we needed to bring back, you know, a resolution to support the grant, we could certainly do that, or, you know, I could be authorized to write a letter on behalf of the town. Jeff, do you, what was the timing? You mentioned Pitkin County was doing an emergency resolution on the 13th, 12th, what'd you say?
On the 10th.
On the
10th of February.
Okay, we have another council meeting on the
Ninth.
7th. So if I needed to bring something back, we could do that. Did the grant require a resolution specifically, or is that just what the county was proposing?
The grant requires
The 9th.
it's kind of loosely formulated, it requires permission.
Permission.
And so, and really the only entity that's required to put out that permission is the managing agent, which is the county.
Mhm.
However, since funds, let me share this last slide. Since funds are coming from multiple entities or organizations, each DOLA does require that each one of these organizations show that the funds are committed and not pending within 6 weeks after submitting the application.
Okay.
So that's actually more important, that the funds, and I put in here for Basalt, everything, just, you know, if that were, assuming that you did all three of those items, the total would be 110K.
Mm-hmm.
But you would be required to submit a supplemental, have it approved, so that the funds are committed.
Yeah, so we'd have to bring that back at the next meeting, and that would be an ordinance. Jeff, do you have any comments on that? As in Jeff Conklin, our town attorney, sorry.
No.
He may.
I think we can put something together for the packet in terms of, you know, supporting the grant application in form of a resolution. And then if the second piece is to show that we will have budgeted and appropriated the funds within that 6-week period of time, I mean, that's doable, and we can do so by ordinance. So.
Yeah.
Ryan, what's the state of play at relative to broadband for the Willits area? I mean, we've got this whole, obviously, conversations all Old Town.
Sure.
What is the impact of fiber coming up Valley for Willits, and the whole question of distribution and everything else there?
Yeah, so as I understand it, Willits Town Center has fiber to those buildings. And Ting has taken over ownership of that. So I think that there's an opportunity for you know, those residents to get high speed. In the background, we coincidentally have another project we are working on in concert with the tree farm, where there were some development obligations that were specifically to sequence traffic lights between Elgeville Road and Original Road. And the town is very interested, as that fiber and conduit gets laid, that we would add additional conduit, or at least have access to dark fiber for that section of highway as an opportunity in the future to, you know, just begin connecting things up. And you know, some of the opportunities that I see of doing that is, you are going to be running right by the new Public Works facility. You could then come in and pick up like the medical you know, the medical facility right there. There's the Willits Bend unincorporated area, and those neighborhoods in there. So I think whenever there's an opportunity to get fiber or additional conduit, it's, you know, we just jump at it. And that one, right now, at least, is a developer paid for. And so that would be a secondary project we would be looking at.
And Ryan, we actually, in our budget, have $240,000 for the West Basalt area, of which part of that is developer money, and then part of it's Willits related money that we were gonna add to that project. So we do have some money budgeted this year for that area.
Okay. Susan, it was a little hard to hear you, but I think of that money budgeted for this project.
It's for really the Willits area. So some of
Ah.
it was the Willits Rita, and then we added the developer funds, which they have paid us already. So there's really, we've budgeted 240,000, but we have 230 right now, I would say.
Got it.
Yeah. Did
Okay.
you hear that better?
And one of the things to point out here, Jeff Kruger, that is, you can see the orange line to the left side of the screen. That is Holy Cross Energy's, you know, fiber that they're bringing down. And then if you just to orient yourself, if you look at the ski lake over there, you can see our roundabout just directly across the way. So there would be fiber coming along the highway there. It's feasible that you could, you know, do another build off of the Holy Cross Energy line as, you know, kind of getting into that backbone and bringing that into play down in the Willits area. So that was just not one that, you know, we talked about it briefly in the scope of this DOLA grant, but really things for the time being centered in Old Town on the south side with the project we just described.
Yeah, Holy Cross actually plans on putting some splice points along this path, such that if an opportunity does come along in the future to connect up to Tree Farm, you'll have the ability to do it.
Well, guys, we're running out of time here for our work session. Did you have more, Jeff or Ryan?
No, that was about it. We just, you know, kind of wanted to get the nod from council if you felt like we should continue pursuing this, and we can, you know, bring things back to you.
All right. Elise has her hand up.
I'm in favor of this. I think that this would be amazing. My only concern is just to understand where the money's coming from. So maybe that can be in the agenda for the council meeting in February, just an explanation of the funding sources and the opportunity cost.
Yeah, at least the funding source would be the general fund. So it would come, you know, basically come from the town's general fund out of, you know, a reserve or, you know, essentially some of the added sales tax that we were able to garner last year. And so that's what would pay for this.
Okay, so maybe just an explanation of what's left behind afterwards, so we're comfortable.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? David?
I just want to just say, give you my nod of support. I think this is a great project. And I would support the pole and the whole bit. I think there's a lot of benefits, you know, now and in the future. I would just say that, you know, future strategic work plans, like we were talking about with marketing, trying to entice service providers and things like that, and expanding just that physical footprint, that we keep our eye on that and keep this a focus in our future strategic work plans. But I think it's great, and thanks for bringing it.
You bet.
Excellent.
Give
I
the nod.
endorse both those comments. Glenn?
I'm with you, Bill.
Great. Gary or Ryan, you guys want to chip in, or You good? All right. Well, I think you got strong encouragement here from council, so,
There's your nod.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
That's
got-
great. Thank you. And thank you very much, Jeff Kruger, for taking the time. We definitely appreciate it.
No problem. If you ever need me to come back, I'd be happy to do it. So
Okay.
thanks again.
Person.
Hopefully my
Thank
webcam
you.
will be working next time.
Yeah.
So, Pam, are you there? Yes, she is.
I'm here.
Okay, so we have no shenanigans with changing Zoom meetings. We can just roll on this platform. That's
That's correct.
warms the cockles of my heart. I don't know what cockles are, but they're all warmed up. So great. We're right at 6 o'clock. So unless I hear bitter opposition, I'm just going to assume we will roll forward into our regular meeting. So for those that are viewing, we will now proceed with our regular Basalt Town Council meeting for tonight, Tuesday, January 26th. And if Pam Schilling, our town clerk, would read the roll, we'll get the meeting called to order.
I would be happy to. Let's begin. Let's start with Ryan Slack.
Here.
Thanks, Ryan. Gary Tenenbaum.
Here.
Thank you, Gary. Elise Hoddle.
Present.
Thank you, Elise. Bill Infante is absent this evening. David Knight.
Here.
Thank you, David. Glenn Drummond.
Here.
And Mayor Kane.
Yes, here.
Great, thank you.
All right. Our first order of business is a consent agenda, which includes minutes from January 12, 2021, reappointment to Green Teeb for Dave Mullaney, reappointments to Bach, Kathy Click, Doug McDonald, Ann Baker, and reappointments to Post, Paul Hiltz, Julie Kolar, Carol Hawk, Jason Groves, and Cindy Bruce. So if any council member would like to pull any of these off, the floor is open for that motion. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to move the approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Mayor, I move the town council approve the consent agenda items as presented in the agenda summary sheets.
Is there a
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. I think we can do a voice vote here, can't we, Jeff? So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? No nays. Thank you. Consent agenda is approved. So our next order of business is to entertain public comment. At this time, members of the public are invited to address the town council on any issue except for items scheduled for a public hearing at this meeting. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Identify yourself by name and address. Comments should be courteous, civil, and constructive, and I guess we're the judge of that. Town council will make no decision other than direct the town manager. So with that, we'd be pleased to hear from any members of the public that would like to call in. Susan Philp will give you directions.
So the easiest way, if you want to speak as the public, is to go to the second page of the agenda packet and click the link, and then Pam will upgrade you to a panelist. Or you can call 1-253-215-8782, and the webinar ID is 944-2304-8596, and that information is being shown right now by Grassroots. We have not had any indication of anybody wanting to speak during public comment. We do have a notice of people that want to speak during our public hearing item. So
Okay.
Pam, you don't have anybody else, correct?
That's not correct. I have someone named Jeff Storner
That's-
attending the meeting.
Yeah, and he wants to speak during the public hearing. I don't
Okay.
believe he wants to speak during this time of the agenda. He should
Fair
raise
enough.
his hand if that's not the
Okay.
case.
All right, well, that public hearing's coming right up, so if there are no callers, then I think we will proceed to our next order of business, which is listen to mayor and council reports and comments. So floor is open for council commentary.
I'd like to pass along gratitudes from the Basalt Elementary School. I talked to the principal, and he had said that Ryan and the Basalt Chamber had made the caboose available for a teacher that didn't have service at her house, but was quarantined, but still wanted to work. And so
Yeah.
just an awesome, awesome to hear about, us kind of going above and beyond and trying to help out our partners at the school. And it's something we were talking about at the end of last year, and it's great to see it working out.
Great.
And then also kudos to Eagle County for the business grants. I had talked to a local business that was able to take advantage of that, and it definitely is helping in these troubled times, and I hope we can just all continue to keep supporting our local restaurants and local businesses.
Yeah, I think we had at last count 17 businesses that were able to take advantage of the COVID relief funding. I think around $15,000 grants were available, so that's a help. I mean, everybody's just trying to get through the winter and bridge to a happier summer, so that was really all good. Elise, you had your hand up.
I did. I wanted to see if there would be interest from the council to sign on to an email to Governor Polis's aides regarding a transportation funding package that they're currently negotiating. And apparently there is not a very heavy emphasis on multimodal and bus infrastructure and that sort of thing. So I wondered if there was support from the council as a whole. I mean, I personally would plan to email them, but I thought it would be stronger if we could all pitch in together. And I thought, Bill, with your background on the RAFTA board, that you might have some interesting perspective as well about how important that is in our valley and how important it would be to have funding for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, position us to qualify for a lot more federal assistance too, from the looks of things coming down the road.
Can I ask a quick question on that? At least I saw your email, and I tried to give CML a call this afternoon, and unfortunately I wasn't able to reach them before the meeting. When I read through it, there was a couple things. One is it said it was urgent, but it didn't ever give a timeline of when they wanted a response. So my thoughts here might not be as timely as I'd like, but I know that a lot of the state's funding, they pursued a different funding mechanism, which the voters did not support. And we have a lot of deferred maintenance on our existing infrastructure. And so I just don't know if by doing this, does that mean that they're going to continue to defer, on our existing infrastructure, which of course then has economic, implications for the state as far as, economic activity. And I would sort of be interested in finding out more just so I could share that with you all as you kind of mull this over. But if it's got to be in by tomorrow or something, that might make a difference in our decision too.
Well, I just shot Jacob at CC4CA an email asking how urgent is, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
And I'm also happy. I mean, one of the bullet points that they had listed was wanting to put more money towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to say, we think that, maintaining infrastructure is equally as important. We just don't want multimodal and public transit to fall by the wayside. And, cars get too much emphasis in the future planning.
Well, it was a pretty compelling statement that it would be nearly impossible to achieve the environmental goals, the reduction of greenhouse gases, if we didn't take the cars off the roadway, that the timelines just aren't meeting up. So I agree with you. It's an important thing. If you guys want me to get you some more information, I can definitely start on that tomorrow and email it around, and we can go from there. And then,
Okay, well, let me see what Jacob has to say on urgency.
okay.
Sounds good.
But at least now you'll all know, you'll have the background. So if you see this email come through, you'll be like, oh, I know what this is.
Thanks. That's good. Any other comments from council? We'll get to the town manager in a minute.
Glenn Drummond
One
has-
nit on my end. So I was attended our RAFTA board meeting last week. I dropped the agenda on the floor. I bent over to pick it up, and by the time I returned to the screen, I'd been installed as vice chair of the RAFTA board. So
Good job.
that's how those things
That'll
work.
teach you.
Yeah, so it brings with it,
Promotion.
yeah, enormous authority. So
You can use that to get us our connector shuttle.
there you go. We'll be working on it. Great idea. So Glenn, did you have a comment?
I just had an update. We had the Basalt Emergency Management Committee meeting on 1/14/2021. Obviously, COVID is a huge thing about that. Levels in Pickens County are still way out of line. Eagle County was decreasing, but then after the holidays came back down. Phase 1B above the dotted line is still currently where the vaccine protocol is as far as people getting it. The one important thing I saw there is eaglecountycovid.org. Sorry, Pickens County's health person wasn't there, but go to that website. If you're 70-year older or even 65-year older, sign up, and then as soon as vaccines become available, you'll be able to be put into a lottery to get them. Rain gauge projects on Lake Christine burn scar will continue through 2021 and then be reevaluated. And then this one, there's not really a definitive answer, but the Everbridge alerts that are going out for everybody and people who are signed up for them, they changed their fee structure, so now it is based on per alert versus it used to just be a straight fee. I think Chris Matera at the Basalt Chamber of Commerce said that Twitter is a good option for filling in the gaps of what won't be provided by the Everbridge alerts. We did get the Eagle County Sheriff to appoint a new member, which was Dan Loya. I believe he is the undersheriff. He is the new member for BEMC. And COVID was pretty much the rest of it.
Yeah.
Wear a mask, do your part, and that's about it.
All right, got it. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we'll hear from our town manager.
Yeah, just a couple brief statements. Let's see. The first, wanted to report back to you that our reporting that we had to do back to the state for our CARES Act funding that we received has been turned in and is now complete. So thank you, Christy, for that effort. But in the end, we received a total of $307,000. And if you remember, at the very end of December, we kind of scrambled a bit because there was a little extra funding and we were able to fully fund those mini business grants that we did. And so all of that is in, and now we're just waiting to hear on what the next opportunity as far as that goes is. But I did happen to hear, Bill and I had a meeting today with the art base, and sounds like they were able to get after their PPP loans and said it was quite simple. The fact that they'd applied before through the bank, basically they were able to keep all the same information. They had to do a couple updates, but it sounds like you know, that's working for those that would qualify for it. And I believe that the grant funding for Eagle County is now, the deadline is come and gone. And so I'll see if I can get an update for council for my Friday report on you know, how that ended up. But then the Pitkin County grants through Aspen Community Foundation, which will not be business focused, but they will be for individuals, should be coming online as well. So I'll see if I can get an update for that. Let's see, I had been asked to reach out to Representative Bobert's office to see about getting, you know, sort of a town hall set up. I've done that. I have not heard back. That was, I think, a week ago that I did that. And so I'll see, you know, just kind of keep tabs on that. And then lastly, the public works site. So we have closed and that is now in our possession. We went out there and did a little walkthrough with myself and two of the public works guys. They're going to meet Mr. Shelton out there tomorrow to do kind of a final walkthrough, but at the staff level, we're now kind of planning for next steps and trying to get improvements planned for out there. And so that's coming along. And otherwise, staff is sort of in a busy time of year, just trying to get all of the planning done for you know, improvements throughout the year. So engaging with our you know, the contractor community and such to get RFPs out so we can do our road improvements. The pool is coming along well, and we should actually be receiving our funding for the COPs on the 5th of February. So I think I'll leave it at that for now, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Manager Mahoney before we move on? All right, thank you. So we're on to council actions. Our first item up tonight is item 6A. This is a discussion with Bach on the rental assistance program. So we're going to recap 2020 and then hear about the 2021 emergency rental assistance plan. So Sarah and James have this. I see Kathy Click logged on. So I think there are some Bach members that may be joining us as well. Yeah, Ann Baker, maybe, not sure. So James and Sarah, you got the floor here.
And maybe before we start, Pam is, Doug is getting on as well. So
Great.
Sarah's going to take it.
Hi, Doug.
Great. I'm gonna, if everyone can hear me, I was gonna introduce this item. Sarah Nadolny with the Town's Planning Department, and we do have Kathy Click here, who's the chair of Bach. Doug McDonald is here, as well as Ann Baker. And we're here to report out on the town's 2020 Emergency Rental Assistance Program, as well as to get feedback on the proposed framework for the 2020 program. Just to give you a brief recap, the 2020 program began in November. Assistance was offered to tenants of Basalt affordable housing who met criteria that was outlined in the framework and also approved previously by council. And that program was pretty successful. Throughout those 2 months, the program was able to provide assistance to 6 Basalt residents and funds over $10,000 of emergency rental assistance fund. Recipients have asked me to pass along their appreciation for this assistance to both to town council as well as to Bach. And we've had one recipient call this really life-changing experience for himself and his family. So it was really well received. The 2021 budget did include $10,000 to continue this emergency rental assistance program into 2021. And per council's direction, Bach has returned with a framework that's really similar to that which council saw for the 2020 program. Minor changes have been made based on experience that staff in Bach has had with looking through applications with the 2020 program. And the program is really, just to note that it's really intended to provide gap funding. It's intended to leverage resources from other available programs, which do seem to kind of come and go throughout this pandemic. So we're trying to keep tabs on that as much as possible. And as I said, the BOC members are here to discuss the framework for 2021, as well as to take council direction for the program. But before I turn this over to council and to BOC, I just want to give this opportunity to give a shout out of appreciation to the property manager at the Roaring Fork Apartments. That's Ms. Kim Stallone. I just was really impressed by Kim. She's really gone above and beyond to support the residents there and to help it with anything that she can with their rental assistance application. And just wanted to really show my appreciation, for her support there for her residents. So with that, turn it over to the BOC members or to council if you care to ask any questions. And I can, if you'd like, I can share my screen and put that framework up on the screen that we're proposing. If I am able to find it quickly. Sorry, just one moment here. Here we are. That should be it. Sorry, I have quite a few things open, and it might help if I did not. Okay, so that should be it. Am I sharing the correct thing, or if I'm just sharing?
Nothing popped up, Sarah.
Interesting. Okay, let me try that again. Sorry. Here we are. Okay. Are you seeing the draft 2020 rental assistance framework?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe as a way of introducing this, I think that I can speak for Doug and Ann as well by thanking the council for realizing and recognizing that this was an unusual situation and really desperately needed. And I think that shows by how many people used it, how the parameters that we set up did not seem to be onerous. People were able to come up with the information that we had requested, and it was a very positive situation, not only for us and for the town, but I think for our residents as well. And I'm very appreciative of the council agreeing to do this kind of at the late hour. And now we're hoping that we can do it again in 2021.
Yeah, Sarah mentioned $10,000. Is that enough? Or we'll find out whether it's enough. I guess you can come back. But
yeah, it's probably not enough. It's helpful now that the moratorium has been extended for evictions. That will be helpful. But there's always that dance between when that moratorium is going to be over and how we are going to be prepared seasonally, if it's going to be job season or not. So if it extends through March, and then the moratorium is up in April, and traditionally April, May are pretty slow months here for job recruitment, then we could be looking at another tough situation.
Okay. Any questions for our BOC members or staff from council? Well, I know I would like to say on behalf of the council, we really appreciate your efforts. Sound like a mutual admiration society, but it really is. I think we are very grateful to have folks who have their finger on the pulse of this and are keeping an eye out to some of our more vulnerable sort of citizens. So, this is a great service, and the volume of money is not huge, but I think the kind of the compassion and the sensitivity to our community is great. So,
Mayor Kane?
Yeah.
Elise has her hand up. You may not be able to see it with the screen
I'm sorry,
share.
who did?
Elise Hottle has her hand up.
I'm sorry, I didn't see
There
it.
we go.
The one that always has something to say.
There's Elise. There you go. You got the floor.
I have a question and a comment. So first of all, the question is with regards, first of all, let me just say thank you very much. I think this program is wonderful. and I'm in full support of it. But the question is, with the applicant must have available resources in the household of less than 3 months worth of shelter expenses. I'm just curious how you determine that.
Well, we get from the management company that is managing the affordable housing that the applicant is in, what their rent is essentially. And then we have asked for bank account verification to show us what their current resources are.
Okay, great. And then my other comment is, and I'm so sorry, I should probably have prefaced this by saying that I have heard anecdotally that people are gaming the system, and that's really unfortunate because it's taking money away from those who are really deserving. So that's the sort of background for asking these questions. So the comment I had was, I know that there's a requirement that they have been somehow experienced a financial hardship due to COVID-19. And I wondered whether maybe one of the application line items would be what industry do you work in? Because clearly there are certain industries that have been hit harder than others. For example, you know, if you're working in the personal care industry, like you're an in-home support person, you're not going to have been affected as much as, say, a restaurant server. So it just kind of being able to like hone in on those people who are truly struggling during this time of COVID. And I know you guys are all, you know, concerned with these things, and you know, I've been sort of, after I read through these, I was sort of like, how can we really get to those people that need the help? And that was one idea that I had. So
one thing that has come out of the application process is everyone who has applied has provided some background as to where they work, and we have had a number of servers. We have seen that you know, people who have either gone down in hours or just have been cut completely. So it has come out in every application as they express how they've been impacted by COVID. But I think that adding that as a direct question really gets to the point quicker. I think that's something that Bach probably has no problem with.
Sure.
And I should also be explicit that I'm not saying that those people that are taking advantage of the system are definitely like taking advantage of Basalt. There's lots of other programs out there. So just trying to make sure that our program is really addressing those people that are most in need.
And our program is one of the smallest also.
The only comment I have is, how many people did you guys help? Like, this is per Bill, Mayor Kane's, like, is 10 grand really enough when we come to rental assistance? Like, how many people did we help?
Previously, we helped just 6 different folks with different needs. You know, I think the intent of this program, like I said, it's always really been to leverage resources with other available programs and other available funds. What we discovered at the end of 2020 was programs were getting very backlogged, you know, so applicants could show that they've reached out, they're in the process, or they're trying to, you know, get through this process with other resources. However, you know, it just was a big backlog. And so we're kind of hoping more things become available, hoping this really can be more of a leverage type gap funding program. But I think that we're just going to have to see how this plays out.
How many people? How many people reached out compared to 6?
Right. I think we approved everybody who applied.
Yes.
So we had 6 applicants, and they all passed the test.
But there were a couple of additional tenants that were looking potentially for it, but you know, they never got their applications in for whatever reason.
I think to take a little longer view also of this, perhaps some of the existing clients that we have may continue to have needs coming into 2021. And if you look at the overall picture of what's happening with the, the COVID disease right at the moment, we're not particularly hopeful that the needs are going to drop off in 2021. So we are going to have to be very alert to what kind of assistance we're going to be able to get, money-wise from the state. The latest that we have from the state reports are that based on the HR 13 bill of 2020, the state is going to get a bunch of money. We don't know, I don't know how much exactly, but they've indicated that they've already put $500,000 towards housing assistance, and that's going to go towards the 3 of their programs, including the property owner protection, the emergency housing assistance, and also the housing counseling assistance, which we haven't done a whole lot of. But that's where apparently they're going to direct the money in the near future, and that's what we can perhaps call on outside of local funding. So there's money in the pipeline from the federal direction as well, but we don't have any details about when that's actually going to filter down. So I'm just saying we need to stay on the alert because we may get hit big time coming in 2021.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Yeah, I'm afraid that's the truth. So,
Yes, may I say something? To Elise's question or concern about fraud, as I understand it, the money that is paid for rent is paid directly to the landlord. It's not paid to the applicant. So no one is getting a check in their hand. They're getting their rent paid.
well, that's reassuring to hear. That's good to be reminded of that. Thank you.
And Elise, I think I have to correct a statement that I made. Actually, in terms of the shelter expenses, we require an affidavit, and some applicants have provided financial information, and some have just provided the affidavit. So I wanted to correct that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody else pays my rent, that's, X amount of dollars I can spend on a new car, a vacation. Just because they're not getting a check doesn't mean they aren't using it to their advantage, but maybe I'm just jealous.
I wouldn't want to see that car for some of the money we're talking about here. Okay, further questions? Thank you, Bach, guys. We really appreciate your hard work on this, and I think we reappointed you guys too, maybe earlier this evening. So we're gonna.
Oh, how handy!
See more of you. Yeah. I think we got that in the right sequence, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you again for your support.
David, before we leave
Do
this.
we need to provide any direction? It just says council direction in the packet. I mean, I'm supportive of all this, but I didn't know if we needed to do anything.
I think generally what Bach was looking for is whether there's any adjustments to the framework that council is looking for.
Thank you for all you do.
And we do have Councilor Hoddle's input on creating another line to show what industry that the applicant is involved in, which I think that we could talk with Bach. I think we're probably amenable to, and if so, I think we're looking just for direction that we can roll out the program for 2021.
I'd say roll it out and let us know whether you need more money.
Definitely.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we arrive at, we have a public hearing. This is item 6B, a public hearing and consideration of resolution number 2 of 2021. Resolution of the Town of Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving a sketch site plan review, sketch environmentally sensitive area, ESA review, sketch Reach 2 floodplain review, and sketch plan approval of PUD amendments to construct a residential apartment project on Lot J, Basalt Commercial Park subdivision PUD, Basalt, Colorado. James will lead us through this.
Thank you. This is a public hearing and consideration of a resolution on an application submitted by Forkfront Basalt LLC. They're requesting, as the mayor indicated, a sketch plan PUD amendment, sketch site plan, sketch ESA, which is environmentally sensitive area review, and sketch ESA floodplain Reach 2 review. And it's to construct a 100% residential building on Lot J of the Basalt Commercial Park subdivision and PUD. The site subject to the application is Lot J, and it can be seen here on the vicinity map. It contains about 12,000 square foot, and it's at the end of Emma Road. To give you a little idea of where that's located, this is Emma Road. Here is the Basalt store. This is River Park Center that has Stubbies in it and Subway. And then this is the Roaring Fork Apartments. And as you go further east, you have the Basalt River Lofts building, which is the blue building that has Harry Teague's office in it. And then further to the east, here is the subject site. It currently permits a mixed-use building with commercial on the first floor and residential on the upper floors. And the applicant's proposal, let me see if I can advance slides here, is to construct a 100% residential building of 12 units on the site, and to amend the PUD to allow for that 100% residential building. They're also proposing to amend the PUD to allow for a building height of 32 feet instead of the current height limit for the property, which is 30 feet. Of the 12 units, 3 are proposed to be Category 2 affordable housing units to be deed restricted, and all of the units are proposed as rental units. In terms of the review process, the applicants chose to split the review into a sketch and a final review in order to get an understanding as to whether the concept is generally acceptable before they go to the expense and time of having the final civil engineering drawings and hydrological modeling done for the final environmentally sensitive area review. So there's 2 rounds of review by the P&Z and Town Council. This is the first round, which is the sketch review, and the P&Z has made a recommendation on the sketch plan review. In reviewing the application, staff identified a series of discussion items that are outlined in the 2 staff memos to the P&Z that are included in your council packet, as well as P&Z discussed these items over several meetings. And I'd like to briefly go over those items and P&Z's position on them. So consistency with the master plan. In the 2020 master plan, there's a density range of up to 12 units identified for the site. The P&Z felt that this was a good place for residential within a quarter of a mile from the BRT station, as well as close to services of River Park Center, as well as the downtown area. The PUD amendment requests, I briefly went over those. The first is a use adjustment in the PUD to permit a 100% residential project on this site. And then the second PUD amendment request is for the building height to increase it from 30 feet to 32 feet in height. P&Z was accepting of the proposed amendment to change the building allowable uses to a 100% residential project, and they identified that there's a significant need for rental housing in the Mid-Valley. And as mentioned, they felt that it was near BRT as well as town services. With regard to the building height, as I identified, they're asking to change the PUD to increase to 32 feet, so a 2-foot change. They were originally proposing a 3-foot adjustment, with 1.5 of those feet being for a parapet wall on top of the building to hide the solar that they're proposing to provide, with the other 1.5 to be incorporated into the units to make them more livable. As some more background, the P&Z requested that they remove the parapet from the design because they felt that it was okay to have the solar panels visible above the roof line. And similarly, Basalt River Lofts was held to the 30-foot height limit, but they were allowed to have the solar panels extend above the height limit as is permitted by the town code. You see these in your packet. These are the sections that show the height limit and that the applicant is proposing to be 2 foot above the height limit. They also did some photo simulations that were in the original application to kind of give a visual from what it would look like from the adjacent Basalt River Lofts perspective, and the applicants can go over that in more detail as part of their analysis. The P&Z was supportive of the 2-foot height adjustment to make the units more livable. As I indicated, they didn't think that the parapet was necessary, so they reduced their height down to the 32 feet that they're requesting. The height is consistent with the underlying C3 zoning, which would permit a 33-foot height, but it still is an adjustment to the PUD. So there is a condition included in your draft resolution that allows for the 32-foot height that is being requested. Other discussion items that the P&Z dealt with included access and parking. Emma Road is a private road that's maintained by the HOA. And Lot J was allocated 17 parking spaces in the original platting for the subdivision. But the 12 units would require a total of 26 parking spaces by the town code. The applicants originally provided a design that was in their application that included 26 parking spaces to meet the requirement. But most of those parking, or several of those parking spaces, were accommodated across from the Basalt River Lofts building, kind of where my cursor is in this drawing. And the neighbors, some of the neighbors in the Basalt River Lofts building had some concerns about providing that significant parking for Lot J across from the Basalt River Lofts building. So staff and the fire district worked with the applicants to come up with another parking scenario so that they could provide 24 parking spaces for the development, and they requested a waiver of 2 guest parking spaces through the PUD. As part of that, they are protecting a ponderosa pine that's a significant ponderosa pine tree that staff has identified to preserve as part of the project. In their revised parking scenario, they still have 2 spaces for Lot J across from Basalt River Lofts, but those were platted in the original platting for the development. And then the remainder of their parking spaces for this Lot J development are included to the east of the fire district turnaround. So they're adjacent to the Lot J property that the building's being developed on. The Planning and Zoning Commission was comfortable with this scenario. They did have an alternative that they considered if council is not comfortable with having the 2 parking spot guest waiver. Council could require having 2 tandem parking spaces, as you see here in blue. This was another option that the P&Z considered to get to the 26 space requirement. We do have some projects in Willits Town Center where they do have the tandem parking scenario, and it seems to be working okay. But P&Z didn't feel that there was a need to do the tandem spaces, and they recommended a 2-space waiver from the guest parking requirement because they felt that there is significant parking in this kind of eastern area of the Basalt Commercial Park development. P&Z also had considerations related to the facade of the building facing Emma Road. P&Z required some adjustments in terms of the materials as well as the articulation of the facade. There were some elements added to help reduce the apparent massing and provide some additional interest during the P&Z review. Ultimately, the P&Z was accepting of the building design as it's shown here on the screen. There are conditions included that the applicants would have to provide more details on the materials as part of the final plan application. With regard to the affordable housing mitigation, the code requires that 25% of the units and 25% of the square footage of a residential building be deed restricted as affordable housing. The applicant is proposing for 3 of the units in the 12-unit project to be deed restricted as Category 2 rental affordable housing units. That would be for families and individuals making at most 100% of the area median income and working at least 1,500 hours between Aspen and Glenwood, as is the requirements in the affordable housing guidelines. There is 1 affordable housing unit proposed on each of the 3 levels of the building. They're these peach kind of colored units that you see on the floor plans. So they meet the 25% mitigation requirement with the design of the building. They have added exterior storage units for each of the units outside of the units. And this was per a recommendation from staff as well as the Homeowners Association for Basalt River Lofts, as well as the Basalt Commercial Park. Bach reviewed the affordable housing units for consistency with the town's livability requirements in the community housing guidelines, and they felt that the proposed units met the livability requirements, and so there's been conditions that the applicant provide deed restrictions as part of the final plan application for staff and the council to evaluate. Other discussion topics include the environmental and green aspects of the project. The applicants are required to meet the sustainable building regulations that the town has in our code, as well as they're proposing to have solar panels on the roof to meet the renewable energy requirement that we have as part of the SBR program. Additionally, they're required to meet the new wildfire mitigation requirements that were put in the code and recently adopted. And staff has included draft conditions that they show how they're going to satisfy the SBR as well as the wildfire mitigation requirements as part of the final plan application. In terms of some of the referral comments that we received, the fire district thought that they had acceptable access as well as necessary fire hydrants in their program. The fire district did comment, let me get to the site plan, that the species of these trees needed to be evaluated between the sketch plan and the final plan application to come up with a tree species that had kind of a lower final height on it because they were proposing to serve the project by parking the fire truck here and potentially laddering over to the building. So they needed some lower trees along that edge of the fire turnaround. So that's been included as a draft condition for changes there. In terms of the Basalt Sanitation District comments, they feel that they need more detail as part of their civil drawings, as part of the final plan, and that there will need to be a variance from the Basalt Sanitation Board for shared service lines to the buildings. They usually require this for rental units. If it were a for sale project, they would need separate sewer service lines, but because it's a rental project, they can go to the Basalt Sanitation Board for a variance to allow for shared service. RAFTA provided comments as well. Their comments were to come up with some first and last mile improvements, and so there are requirements that they pay a fee towards bike share as well as car share, and that's been required of other projects such as the 525 Basalt Avenue project and other recent projects. Overall, the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as the Basalt Affordable Community Housing Committee, BAC, recommended approval of the sketch plan with the conditions that you have in the draft resolution. So this evening, staff would recommend hearing from the applicant, taking public comment because it is a public hearing, and providing council discussion. Ultimately, if you're comfortable with the conditions, you could approve the resolution. So with that, let me stop sharing my screen. And we have the applicants with us this evening. We've got Aaron Ward representing the property ownership, and we have architects Ramsey Fulton, as well as Jeff Dahl from Building Seed Architects. Guys, do you want to go through your comments?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thank you, James. I really appreciate the introduction and thoroughness of that. Jeff's going to share the screen here in a second. Once again, yeah, we're here with Aaron Ward, the property owner. Jeff Dahl is the project manager for our architecture firm, and I'm Ramsey Fulton. I'm the principal. And, you know, it's a real pleasure tonight to present to you guys the project we call Emma Flats. It's a transit-oriented rental housing proposal for Basalt. I'm going to start by guiding you through the context and design solution and how we reached it. Then I'm going to highlight the 2020 master plan themes that we've incorporated into the design. And then the last thing I will is I'll briefly touch on something that James just did, and that's review the recent changes to the design after considering public comments and P&Z feedback. So Jeff, you can go to the next one. So here is just sort of an overview of most of downtown Basalt. And you know, from this site here, you can kind of tell where we're located at the end of Emma Road. A good walkable site to downtown, as well as the shops and stores and restaurants located near Stubby's and in that shopping center there. You know, sort of at the other side of Stubby's is where that Roaring Fork Apartments is, and that everything that follows that on that road is the PUD that we're located in. It's Basalt Commercial Park. Next slide. One of the nice amenities that we noticed right away in analyzing this site and what should go here is the RAFTA bus stop nearby. And we identified that very early on as ideal for transit-oriented housing. And you know, the obvious goal there is to lessen the parking demand and traffic demand and encourage mass transit and multi-mode commuting, which certainly is supported in the master plan. Right across from that transit stop, we have the 56 apartment building, Roaring Fork Apartments, that was just recently finished. And then down, you know, if you continue down the road, there's a larger open space sort of between the two buildings there, and a lot of head-in parking, quite a number of parking spaces that I'm not sure anyone knows what they're who they're serving, but they're there, and they're I'm sure when that Ponderosa Trail gets a little more action, they'll go to good use, but we also feel like they could service anyone who's visiting our site. But then at the end of that section of road, we have the 4 units that are upstairs in Basalt River Lofts, which is our neighbor. And then just straight to the north, we have a nice wooded area from our site, and the Ponderosa Trail, and then obviously the Roaring Fork River and the kayak park there. And on the other side, we have the Highway 82 to contend with. And next slide, please. So this next slide here really shows you the footprint of our site, not of our building. And you know, one of the nice things that we also noticed here is, you know, that we really only have one neighbor to go up against, and the other 3 sides are open to nature and light. And so we felt like that was a real asset. And even where we do have a neighbor, it's across a pre-planned plaza area for the Basalt Commercial Park PUD, and our neighbor is roughly 65 feet away. So it's a good distance away, and that area is was turned into the emergency access way for Pickens County. But with that, we'll kind of zoom in here and take a look at the ground level understanding of the land. So next slide, Jeff. I think we might have skipped a couple there. Did we skip a couple? Go back again. No, maybe not. Okay, that's okay. We did have some images of the Roaring Fork Apartments, but maybe they're coming later. But anyways, right here you can kind of see some of the beautiful natural settings we have adjacent to the site here. You know, if you just take a small walk from the proposed site, you have the Roaring Fork River and the kayak park there. And also, you know, between our site and that location, you have the Ponderosa Trail, which you can kind of see there, which is a great opportunity for the residents, for recreation and just having adjacent to your home. It's just something that really excites us. Next slide, Jeff. So this next one, you can kind of see the wooded area that's behind our site, and the tall, mature, 60 to 70 foot tall cottonwood trees as they're hitting their peak fall colors. I was on site, got a chance to take this picture. And you know, another good thing to point out here while we're looking at the natural beauty is that none of the trees that you see here need to be removed as part of our proposal. They're all off of our site actually, and just right adjacent to us. And so just a great opportunity to not only utilize that natural setting for our occupants of this building, but also to not have to interfere with it any further than it has been in the past. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, here we are. Okay, I thought these were in a different order, but this is the sort of the approaching view from Emma Road, and looking past the Basalt River Lofts on your left-hand side. Just kind of give you a little more context. Next slide. And these are a couple different views looking back at the Basalt River Lofts and our neighbor that we're going to kind of have the front of our building right in line with this building, which I think is going to be a nice streetscape. And you know, kind of can see the building massing here. Roughly, Harry Teague's building is roughly 30 feet tall and has these solar hot water panels on the top that are about 5 feet tall. It has a nice modern aesthetic, which we really appreciate, and we felt like it was appropriate on our project to try to complement that in our design solution. So with that, we're going to start to look at actual proposal drawings for our design. So next slide. So as a first, you know, aerial view here to look at, you can kind of see the parking, and off to the left, you can kind of see the Basalt River Lofts. And you know that obviously, when we were zooming out a bit of ways, you could kind of see the river and the natural setting we have off to our north, and then also you could see the Highway 82 that was off to the southwest. And so that really became a theme for the design solution, was a way to enhance the natural environment and open up to the natural environment and the beautiful river and views of Basalt Mountain, while sort of protecting the occupants from the highway noise and the heat gain that's going to come from the southwest, and sort of trying to make this more green solution. So obviously it was pretty evident that we should keep our vehicular way and all of our parking along that southwest side, as was somewhat pre-planned by the layout of the PUD and the roadways, but we wanted to support that as much as possible. The next slide. So here you can kind of see the back of the building and how we've opened up these units with large decks and porches and expanses of glass and all the living spaces and all the bedrooms we could, facing into this natural beauty area and blocked from the noise and the heat gain. So the next slide. So then, just to see some other angles of the building here, obviously you can kind of tell in that lower right image that mass to your far left of that one is the Basalt River Lofts, is that approaching position, and then a few other angles both in the front and the back. So one of the things that we think is a real success of this project is, we try to introduce warm and durable materials, both quality materials inside and out. We have some wood tones, some lighter colors after hearing comments from P&Z. We feel like some breaking up of the massing and a pedestrian scale on the first level really helps the design and sort of the humanistic nature of it. And also some playful articulations, that screen that kind of is in the stair cores that kind of weaves in and out, creates some interest and some breaking of the massing. And then also, just keeping with a contemporary flair, I think has been helpful in sort of us relating to the neighborhood and the theme set forth by the Basalt River Lofts. So go to the next slide, Jeff. So in this slide here, you can kind of see the site plan. This was a version of the site plan that we submitted before making those final parking adjustments. So we'll get to a current site plan towards the end of this. But here, I wanted to include this particular one because it does show our rooftop solar array, which is one of the green elements we're shooting for here. And obviously, prior, we wanted to screen that to some degree, but after hearing comments from P&Z, it wasn't felt that was necessary. The other aspect you can see here is that space between the two buildings is the emergency access for the kayak park. And we work very closely with Pitkin County on making sure we're hearing and hitting their needs for what needed to happen there, but also making sure that the hardscape and the planted areas were sort of integrated and seamless between our development and their development, and how we finish off the end of this neighborhood. Super important to us, and yeah, I think it was accomplished really well. So go to the next slide, Jeff. So here are the floor plans. We'll start on the first floor here. James did a good job introducing to you the 12 units. There's 4 units on each floor. The third one over from the left in the peachy color is the affordable unit. That affordable unit is much larger than what is bare minimum code. We want to create quality for everyone in this building. Another aspect you'll see in all these units is that we try to have the kitchen in an open area and sort of have it flanked by all the other functions and open that up in floor plan and also with a nice high ceiling, which is really the reason we're asking for that increase, that subtle increase in the building height, is to create that higher ceiling in these areas. And we'll get more into that in a little bit here. But another thing in these floor plans that is, I think, a big success is I feel like a lot of these units will be roommate environments. And so we try to create floor plans that have ensuite primary bathrooms and where possible, secondary full baths that are close to the other bedroom, and tried to separate the bedrooms as much as possible. So when you are living in a roommate environment, you can have a sanctuary of your own. When you go to the next floor up, it's pretty much the same thing, but it shows a little bit more. It should point out that 75% of these units are 2 bedrooms and 2 bath, which we feel like is really filling a void in the community for housing. The other 3 units on the far right there in the yellow are 1 bed, 1 bath, and for that we made them fully equipped and affordable by making them ultra efficient, and that model is also in high demand. The main, and on the main level, if you go back to that slide, sorry, go one back, Jeff. Something I should point out here is that they are all type B accessible ready units. So we have sort of done our part as sort of making sure that this building has accessibility, functionality, and go back up to the second or third, and they're really pretty much the same. Please, Jeff. So these second and third floor plan have big balconies that face off into the woods, as you saw before, with a large expensive glass coming right off of the main living space. Another amenity that we feel like is important here is each unit has a washer and dryer, it's just we're going for really good quality finishes, wood floors, can lights in the ceilings, trying to do this right. And of course, James pointed out that we do have the private gear storage areas that we squeezed into every nook and cranny possible after hearing comments from one of our earlier meetings. So it's just a super efficient building. With that, I think we're going to switch over to the next slide and start to talk about the Basalt Master Plan. And the reason we're kind of going to run through a few sheets like this in our presentation here is because really, we feel like it was a really unique opportunity to be right on the tails of the adoption and the creation of this master plan, which really allowed us to use it as a guide as one of our tools to come up with a solution and really understand what the community wants. And we feel like we've been successful. So if you go to the next slide. So the first theme in the master plan is people and community character. So here, I think, I'm not going to read the blurbs. They're captured from that document in these slides, but I think this is definitely an opportunity and a demonstration of smart growth. It's an urban infill project, which certainly is beneficial, and the language exists in the master plan. It achieves a highly needed housing goal. It protects open spaces defined in nature and connects to nature at the same time. Next slide. And then theme 2 being affordable and inclusive living. This is certainly probably the category where we're achieving the most in reference to the master plan. The current shortage of roughly 1,900 units in the 100 to 120 AMI was represented according to a 2017 study, with projections going up from there in 2027. And so this goal really helps fill that void by creating obtainable apartments that are for rent apartments, not luxury high-end housing that are made for the workforce in the valley, and affordable condos. And 25%, as stated before, are deed restricted affordable units. They're all 2-bed, 2 baths, exceeding the minimum standards that are set forth, helping once again to fill the gap in 2-bedroom inventory that's in high demand. The 4 main level units, once again, are type B, accessible ready. And then, as James did point out, we have been working with BAC, Basalt Affordable Community Housing Board, on this and have incorporated their comments. So go to the next slide, Jeff. Connected and safe movement and access. I think the transit-oriented housing and multi-mode commuting and proximity to those opportunities really kind of speaks for this particular theme. Proximity to schools and shops and restaurants furthers that. We have the bike parking, compact car parking areas, the trail access, and then, you know, the final item I would say here for this theme is the safety inclusion of the emergency access that we are very supportive of and helped integrate into our project. Next theme, please, Jeff. Authentic places and destinations. I think, you know, this one's a little less tangible, but I think this is a very distinctive form of architecture and architectural solution that we're proud of. We think it's unique, and I think it's a real destination at the end of this road and at the end of the Ponderosa Trail, adjacent to this plaza that was originally themed as part of the PUD. And, you know, I think that's a real asset to the end of town here. Next slide. So this slide is probably the resilient and sustainable environment is probably the one we're hitting on second best besides the affordable inclusive living. We have a number of green initiatives. For starters, I would start with, you know, the sustainable building regulations of the town of Basalt, which of course we're planning to incorporate. I also point out that, you know, the density of the housing, the smaller footprint of this building is certainly an aspect that can be seen as a green initiative. You know, just to hit it once again, the transit-oriented multi-mode commuting. We intend to use reclaimed and recycled both post-industrial and post-consumer materials where possible, and we're targeting that. The PV solar panel array, we're going to evaluate and install to offset electrical demands. We're incorporating high efficiency plumbing and electrical fixtures and utilizing localized mechanical and high efficiency HVAC, which is certainly an efficiency that we're happy to introduce. We're hoping for air-to-air heat exchange for the heating and cooling system, which is sort of a trend in sustainable development. And then of course the solar tempered design element of focusing our glazing areas in a direction that's not the southwest is certainly of benefit. So next slide, please. And then theme 6 is maintainable civil and community services. We feel like the kayak park emergency access helps hit this point, as does our work with the Fire Rescue Authority, Roaring Fork Fire Rescue Authority, and inclusion of them in the process. Next slide, please. Well, you know, workplace and workers and economy, this is workforce housing. That is what we're going for here. That's the essence of what this is. It's for rent, workforce housing, not for sale condos, quality and affordable for professionals and tourism industry employees with lifestyle in nature and connected to nature on top of that, given the location. Next slide, please. And, you know, obviously we're not a annexation location here. This is a parcel that was previously established, but in this section of the code, we were recognized as one of the key parcels in the research done by the team that put together this 2020 master plan. And we feel like it's supportive of the 12 units in this draft, and, you know, eliminating barriers is, you know, of the height limit and the parking that P&Z has been supportive of is certainly a way of achieving the affordable housing goal of 500 units. And so with that kind of caps off that second section of what we were producing here today and showing you, and we're gonna move on to the next slide and talk about some of the adjustments we've made since the hearing from the public comments and P&Z in these last rounds. And then after, you know, as James mentioned, after hearing concerns of the Salt River Lofts with the parking, we worked with the town of Basalt and Roaring Fork Fire Rescue to propose two parking spots across the street from the main parking area and adjacent to Highway 82, labeled here as 21 and 22. And then coupling that with protecting the ponderosa pine, as you can see illustrated in the bottom right, between 20 and 21. We feel like this is a real success in sort of making a minor adjustment that helps better the project. Next slide, please. So this is the slide where we talk about the building height and this 2-foot ask that we're going for here today. After hearing concerns about the building height from Basalt River Lofts, we decreased the proposed height by design by 1 foot to 32 feet from the 33. And we feel like this is an easy adjustment for us to make, and while also maintaining the quality within each of the 12 units that was expressed as beneficial by P&Z. I think P&Z really saw the benefit in the 9-foot ceiling heights that create better connection to the outdoors, just a more quality space, as you can see in that rendering, and also just the airflow and natural lighting. The airflow, is a major concern in this COVID world we're in, and quality of that interior environment, and also, the sustainable benefits of bringing in more light through bigger windows that go higher up will help the electrical demand in this building. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So here we're back at this main rendering once again. And I believe James did a pretty good job of describing some of the material adjustments, but you'll notice that the wood that we have on here was made to be even a blonder version from prior iterations of this design. We introduced it in more areas after hearing the favorable reaction to that. We took the mass that's gray from a darker colored gray to a much lighter gray. We were originally matching it to the Basalt River Lofts as our adjacent neighbor, sort of a gesture, but then after hearing some of the reactions to the recent STICO housing and how dark that was, we heard those concerns and lightened up that material. And then there were also some facade and massing adjustments that were made. That gray area we did bring that down in height slightly to the 30-foot height, which is the height of the building adjacent. So that little bit of wood sticking over the top really is the only increase we're looking at here. And that step back helps with the relief. We also sort of limited the area of that second and third story mass by increasing that white area of the double sort of tower elements there, which we feel like was a nice adjustment in articulating and breaking down the mass of this building. So as a final thought, we'll just kind of leave you on this slide and I'll send it back to James in whatever process comes next. But I just want to reiterate one more time, this project was first envisioned really in response and sort of after reading the 2020 master plan and hearing that outcry for rent, obtainable, and affordable workforce housing. And we're trying to provide that to the community here and do so with beautiful architecture that has a lot of green elements to it and is a real asset to the community. So at that, I will go ahead and turn it back to James and let Jeff on the line or Aaron add anything they'd like to and hear comments.
Aaron, do you have any additional comments you want to provide?
Just want to thank the council for hearing us out in the town and P&Z for all the help. I think going through the P&Z process, it really improved from our original iteration. And, I am a local, I'm a commercial real estate appraiser. I own a small firm. I'm highly aware of how hard it is to retain employees and keep people here. A few years ago, staff of about 4 living in the Roaring Fork Valley with working for our company. And since then, all of them have moved to either the Denver metro area or Durango, basically because they've been either costed out or they just simply couldn't find a product that they could really stomach paying the rents that are market rents in this market. I've heard feedback that there's just not a lot of new, nice, good product for professional and workforce. So that's, that's kind of where we're coming from with this project.
James, how we doing? Is that?
Yeah, so the applicant has wrapped up their comments, so if the mayor would like to ask for council questions before we go to public hearing,
Thank you.
thinks that'd be appropriate.
Great questions of council for James or the applicant. I think either one. And I'd be happy to lead off. I just have, I first of all, applaud you guys for your responsiveness to our sort of housing needs and your responsiveness to the comp plan. I think that's a wise direction. I'm curious about the impact on vegetation and the stand of cottonwoods and ponderosas. I saw that you did identify one ponderosa in the parking plan. There's a parking island that looks like it's been kind of identified to protect that one ponderosa. Is this building primarily in a already cleared condition, or do you have to remove a lot of vegetation to achieve this? I couldn't determine where the lot boundaries were relative to those tall cottonwoods and what that situation is. We have a lovely stand of ponderosas in that area, which are really jewels in this valley, and we got to do everything we can to protect those guys. So, so what's the outlook there? Do you have a pretty definitive tree survey, and do you know what the vegetation impacts are going to be?
Yeah, the site has been surveyed. And Jeff, do you want to go back to that most recent, at the end of the slide there was a site plan that showed the updated parking. So the site has been surveyed, and all the trees in the adjacent area have been surveyed as part of that. I don't believe there are any trees that are going to be removed from the site. And I didn't, but that's something we should probably double check. And I hear your concern there. But when we were given given the survey from the surveyor, you can see there that there are some trees in that back area, and our building is not in the footprint of any of them. And our parking scheme, there might be a tree or two that ended up coming into play along Highway 82, but I don't believe there are any trees of significance, if you will, that are going to be harmed in the parking scheme on the Highway 82 side that is off our site, but in part of the common area of the PUD. And very early on, the town sort of expressed interest in saving that ponderosa pine, and the city forester, gave recommendations, and we've adjusted the design to make sure that that's something that's happening. But I would encourage us to, do the diligence to come back to you and have a definitive answer on that at final.
Yeah, I think just a simple drawing showing the existing conditions on the edge of that riparian stand of trees and where the building is and area that would be required to be cleared for parking, if at all. And
I feel like that's the case. I just don't want to make a misrepresentation.
That would just improve our understanding, but thank you. Council, comments, questions about this project? Ryan.
I'd just like to also thank you guys for looking through the master plan and really focusing this project on addressing that. I would encourage to add those 2 extra spots. Parking is just, as much as we want this to be transit oriented, we're notoriously just short on parking across our town, and it becomes an issue after issue. So I'd rather address it now and just have you guys have the 26 spots, even though 2 would be tandem. Shouldn't be too hard with the way your building's set up. But I think this is a great project, and excited you guys are bringing it to us.
Sure thing. Yeah, and I think we would be happy to add those tandems if council feels like it's something they want to recommend. And I hear you there. And I think, we expressed in the last meeting that we're happy to do it if that's the view of the town. I do want to kind of point out though, one last time that there is just a number of parking stalls that are on that straightaway on the other side of the Basalt River Lofts that don't have any apparent use at this time. I think Aaron could probably speak to some things he's seen on that end, but I'm not trying to minimize your thought or go away from it. I just wanted to point that out.
Just want to point out a little bit that before we get into the depth of the merits of the application, this part was for questions, and then before we do a deep dive into any conditions or anything, I think we want to hear from the public.
I can't hear you, Susan.
I'm sorry, I missed that too.
Susan was just suggesting that maybe we try to keep it to questions at this point, and then before we get into council comments, take the public comments.
All righty. So I will, at this point, open it up for public comment. We'll open the public hearing at 7:25 p.m. And Susan, if you wouldn't mind, provide some direction to those that want to call in and comment.
Sure, I'm just going to change mics for a second. So the easiest, we do have some people queued up to speak during the item, but if you're watching on TV, the easiest way to do it is to navigate through the Agenda Center on the town's webpage and hit the link, and Pam can elevate you. Or you can call, and I think Caesar has these numbers up, 1-253-215-8782, and then the webinar ID is 944-2304-8596. And if anybody has a problem, they can email planning@basalt.net or even text at 970-379-1514. So with that, I think you could open the public hearing and just do our normal standard maybe caution on length of time for the public to speak, et cetera.
Yep. So I think we have some folks that have logged on. So I will just take them in order. I think probably the swiftest way to do this is just, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand and tell us your name and address. And you have 3 minutes to address the council on, we're not going to be, if it's 3 minutes and 5 seconds, we're probably not going to bust you. But, we do have a 3-minute standard. So if you would try to adhere to that. So who wants to go? Do we have interested public that would like to comment on the application tonight?
Mayor Jeff Storner has his hand raised.
Okay, yes. Sir, go ahead.
Hello, thank you. My name is Jeff Sterner. I live at 129 Emma Road. I'm the president of the Basalt River Lofts Owners Association. I live in the Valley full time, purchased my unit in 2013. I guess, so Basalt River Lofts has objected to giving a height variance. And what this leads into is, if you look at the 2003 PUD, our lot and Aaron's lot is restricted to a 30-foot height limit. And at the time that was done to restrict the size and density of these buildings. And where we really see this is when we compare the 2003 PUD plat to the current proposal, we've gone from 17 parking spots to 26, which is a 50% increase in density. And just when I was looking at property in the valley, I considered Willits, felt it was too dense for me, came down here, really liked what I saw, and just expected that future development would conform to the P&Z zoning use restrictions and regulations. So it's just been really disappointing that P&Z has been so quick to dismiss the regulations that they defined in 2003. And I empathize with the need for housing. I deal with it myself. But we're talking about $2,500 a month apartments, and that monthly rental number was cited the summer before COVID, and I think we could probably agree that rents have increased. And so I just would really expect a for-profit commercial development just to conform and to abide by the restrictions set in that 2003 PUD. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else member of the public want to speak on the sketch plan? Yes, sir. Is that Tim? It looks like you're muted, so you're going to have to unmute. There we go.
I'm muted here. Hi, Tim McMahon. I live at 133 Ridge Road in Basalt and am a business owner up in Aspen and Snowmass. I've been a business owner since 2005. I sit on the marketing and group sales board for the town of Snowmass Village and have done so for about 6 years. And a consistent theme and problem is housing. And this project goes to the heart of what we have been struggling with for 10, 15 years. And it doesn't matter whether or not for our employees, if you're hourly and on maybe the lower spectrum in terms of earnings, or you're a working professional, housing in general is a monumental task to get over and to drive talent into our valley. So having a project like this that allows for more people to come in at an affordable level that gets access to quality living is extremely important. And living in Old Town and seeing how this project would flow with its neighbors, its access to public transportation, its incorporating the view planes for the river, it's a great project. So I can speak from a neighbor that works up valley and knows the problems of living in the Aspen Snowmass area, and a neighbor that is just in the same community. This is a project that I fully support, and I hope the town council understands that this is just another way to get us to a goal of achieving this housing problem that is really valley-wide. And a lot of the affordable housing in the Aspen Snowmass area restricts those people working just in their specific county. For example, if we have an employee housing unit in Snowmass Village, those employees have to work their 1,500 hours in Snowmass. So it's very hard for somebody that maybe wants to move down valley or has roommates that they can have access to. They have to show that their hours are worked in Snowmass and Snowmass alone, where it sounds like there isn't as much of a restriction.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? Are there others, members of the public, that would like to address council?
Mayor, there's a hand up at Pitkin County Zoom 2.
Yeah. I don't know who that is, but.
I think it's Lisa McDonald.
Okay, Lisa, hi.
Yep.
You got the floor.
Great, thanks. Good evening, Mayor Kane and council members. My name is Lisa McDonald, and I'm with Pitkin County and manage its Healthy Rivers program. I'm pleased to be joining you guys tonight to provide public comment on the Emma Flats apartment project. The county began working with Aaron Ward in 2016 when he'd allowed us to stage on Lot J during the construction and installation of the wave features at the Whitewater Park. And we're currently working with him and his team on the emergency access road that Ramsey spoke to earlier. Aaron and his team have cooperatively addressed all of our needs to come up with a fair solution that will speak to the needs of the entire Basalt Commercial Park Owners Association, while taking in comments and concerns of the surrounding property area owners. Aaron, Ramsey, and Jeff are responsive, knowledgeable, and are thoroughly enjoyable to work with. We believe the project with its occupants will enhance the use of the Whitewater Park. People enjoying the river and using the park, whether it's anglers, kayakers, boogie boarders, or tubers, further strengthens Pitkin County's water right there. The county also supported the building height modification, the parking plan amendments, the modified use, and supports affordable housing and the transit-oriented location. And we are happy to support Aaron, his team, and the Emma Flats project. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? I think that was, sounds like that was the sign-up list, unless anyone else has joined.
Pam, no one else has joined, have they?
Thank you, Susan. So with that, I'll close the public hearing at 7:35 p.m. And ask if there are questions or comments from council, which would lead us to ultimately a motion here on sketch plan resolution. So, Gary?
Yeah, overall, I must admit, you know, when you first look at it in the old PUD to have commercial all the way down there, and I remember when we did get, I think it was Rudd or somebody who proposed a building down there, it, you know, it seemed kind of far away to do any commercial. It kind of seemed, you know, one of those things where commercial traffic would be, you know, kind of a detriment to the Ponderosa stand. And, you know, at the time there was a bike park there too. But overall, I'm supportive. I'm a little concerned about height variances. I'm a little less concerned about the parking variance, though, you know, considering, you know, it's pretty close to 2 per unit. So I'm not that concerned, but I do have a little concern with the height variance. I know it makes it a better unit for the people, but is it really a better, you know, is it a better public benefit? And getting into my public benefit is I'm trying to understand what public benefit we get for doing the variances. And so if you guys could kind of touch on that a little bit, because, you know, we're changing the PUD and I'm supportive of it, but I want to see what the public benefit is. It's not like we're getting any more affordable housing than the code requires. We're asked to do a height variance, which the neighbors aren't that happy about. So what are the public benefits of doing all these variances?
So, Aaron, do you want to try to reply to that, or you just want to take that as a comment that you will take under consideration and we'll circle back to it when we see you next, or, you know, we could go either way.
I'm happy to speak to that. I didn't know I was allowed, you know.
Sorry about that.
Here to talk. So Aaron, you can go, but if you'd like me to answer it, I'm happy to. Those 2 feet is really something that I first envisioned and sort of brought up as something that was 3 feet, something that would be of real value to the occupants of these units. If we're held to the 30 feet, we can still get 12 units into this building, and we can still make them occupied. We can still make them, the affordable units affordable. The thing that you're losing with that simple 2-foot ask is the ability to have all of the ceilings in the units above 8 feet, and a higher level of quality for all 12 units, all 23 bedrooms, and just having these narrower affordable units, having these big open living rooms that have a low ceiling, it doesn't feel as good. The amount of natural light, the amount of connection to nature really has to do with wellness. And it also has to do with energy and lighting, and the amount of lights that need to be on, and also the ventilation of the space. And even though we're going to try to keep our duct runs to a minimum inside these areas that are going to be running at the ceilings, we're afraid that if we're held to the 30, there are going to be some areas where the ceiling is going to need to be in living areas, and right in the entry in some areas that are below 8 feet. And so this ask really has very little to do with how many units we can get into it. It has everything to do with the quality of the units and the sustainability of the project and just the wellness of the occupants and the citizens of Basalt that are going to move in here.
And I'll touch on the parking element. So the ask for 2 spaces. I recently had a conversation with Kim, who is the manager of the Roaring Fork Apartments, so the 56 unit project just down the road from me. And it's amazing that the term transit-oriented parking is kind of thrown around, but it seems to be really working with, they track their tenants' cars, and they average between 50 and 60 cars at that, for the 56 units in that project. So that averages out to be about a unit per car, or a car per unit. And, that is a green initiative in itself, that people are riding the bus more and, fewer people driving up and down the valley. I would expect, even though we're slightly farther away, that our parking ratio per unit or even per bedroom, I think that would equate to about 19 if you calculate their per bedroom average. That would mean that our real need, if we're similar, would be about 19 parking spaces. And so it really, having the bus stop right there seems to, anecdotally from the Roaring Fork Apartments, really help with people taking the bus.
Can I ask a question, Mayor?
Yeah, Glenn?
So on the representation, I think it was P3-2, when you guys compare side by side your lower ceiling height between 30 feet and 33 feet, it appears that your windows and doors that are overlooking the river basically have the same height variance between the ceilings. So are you guys actually increasing the size of those doors in the back? And then secondly, as far as the parking goes, 19 parking spaces, yeah, you can say that, but what happens when somebody wants to have their family come and see them? That becomes a real problem. Like, I live in a development that was allotted 1 parking space per unit, and it does not function very well at all. It is the #1 complaint of the HOA for that. So I'd be fine with knocking 2 spaces off, but 19's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's not my ask.
But on the same token, it seems like there's a bit of a misrepresentation on how big are those windows gonna be overlooking the windows or the river?
Yeah, so if we have 2 more feet to work with, then a little less than 1 foot of extra height you could possibly put each window in each unit is going to create a higher viewing of the trees, the natural lighting that comes in. And it's important to understand that these are long, narrow living spaces that have the stack of the kitchen, dining, and living room. So it's a longer space. So in our one opportunity to get a nice shot of nature and natural lighting is coming out of that window, and light falls to the ground from up high. And so it just creates a much nicer environment, much more daylighting. And the other aspect of that is, once again, the sub 8-foot areas that we are predicting would need to be included because of the mechanical system. And we're trying to avoid that being a reality for these units. And we tried to represent those renderings very accurately. We used some software. So those are actually the same view with a room that has a different height ceiling. And we did put the windows up higher. That is the intention. We'd keep the sills the same. So you would have, and/or the threshold of the doors, you would actually have more light, more view, higher quality spaces. It's really an architect's ask for you to kind of allow us to produce something of higher quality.
And regarding the parking, I'm sorry I interrupted you, Glenn. I just want clarification in case I misled. 19 isn't the ask at all. That's just anecdotally what the per bedroom for the Roaring Fork Apartments, basically their average equates to. So I just wanted to clarify that.
And I do want to clarify, like, overall, I think you guys have done a good job of, P&Z's comments. You honored exactly what they've asked for, and I think this fits in the master plan, so overall, I am supportive of the project.
Elise?
So first of all, full disclosure, I live at Roaring Fork Apartments. I have also lived in the Basalt River Loft, so I am very familiar with this site. It would be my first choice to leave the site as it is and just have it be a fun place to hang out and play. But I don't own it, so given what you've proposed, I think that is a pretty good middle ground. I want to address a couple of things. First of all, the parking. I personally think that there is plenty of guest parking around that area. There are always unused parking spaces at Basalt River Loft. There are always unused parking spaces down along Emma Road. Sure, you can't park right in front of your apartment to unload your groceries, but if you're just a guest coming to visit, it's not very far to walk. So I don't think you necessarily need those extra spaces personally. However, I don't want to create a scenario where the Basalt River Loft and your project are at loggerheads because they're like, you're parking in our parking spaces. Because we really do have that problem right now with the Roaring Fork Apartments, because the folks that work at the River Center next door to us, the medical clinic, and so on and so forth, park in our spaces and push us down. So there is that sort of personal attachment to parking spaces, which is kind of ironic. Second of all, I wanted to address Gary's comment about the public benefit. And one thought I had, seeing as I like to walk down there, is whether or not there is a possibility of an extension of the Ponderosa Trail on maybe, some portion of the back of the property that's in the floodplain anyway that is going to be unused. That might be a nice benefit to folks that are kind of both your development and other folks using that space. And then lastly, this is not something that Aaron or Ramsey can necessarily address, but it is something that I want to flag. Having lived in the Basalt River Loft in, 2013, I think, and now living Roaring Fork Apartments, there is a huge difference in traffic in that intersection, if you will call it an intersection, in front of Subway, the old Valero station, I don't know what it's called now. Folks park there where it says no parking, and then you only have one lane of traffic, and people are coming and going, especially at work times, commute times in the morning and the evening. So I am concerned about adding another potentially 24 vehicles to that stew pot. So I just want to flag that as an issue. And like I said, I don't expect you folks, your application to address that. I just want to put that out there that it really is an issue. I have almost been completely boxed into full-on grid lock in that intersection at times. So just something to be mindful of.
Thank you, Elise. Additional comments from council? Questions of council? Tim, I see you have your hand up, but unfortunately our public hearing portion of the meeting is closed out. So invite you to stick with us and watch, but got to hear from council here at this point. David Knight.
Yeah, overall, I think I'm supportive of this project just because of the amount of attainable housing and the density in relation, like we heard in the presentation, to public transit and everything. The variance does give me pause. It's just 2 feet. I don't know. It's one of those things. It makes perfect sense why we're doing it, but why you want to do it. But at the same time, it's like how much variance is too much, and and somebody else wants 5 feet, or I don't know. this does give you a little bit of pause, but I think I'm overall supportive of this.
Okay. Other comments? James, may we ask a question of clarification? In the resolution number 2, I'm sure it's in there, I just didn't find it. The resolution contains a approval for a 2-foot addition to approves a 32-foot building. Is that
Yes.
the effect of the approval as it's drafted?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks. Additional comments, questions? All right. I think with that, I would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 2 or resolution number 2 with any amendments that you think are appropriate. Basically ask that these gentlemen continue their good works here, and we'll see it next time around. So is there a motion?
I guess the one thing I have, I think it pertains to the amendment, is if we give this approval right now, are we saying that the sketch plan going forward, they have a 32-foot height? I think that's where, I know that's where I'm stuck at. I think that's where David's stuck at. I think it's where Gary's stuck at, is like, what is that amendment going to equate to going forward as far as setting precedent? And this was discussed within P&Z. So is there any flex there that we can have this researched or?
Yeah, I think if I can speak for Gary, I think his view was that, you know, the 2-foot height variance in and of itself is not troublesome, but is there some offsetting benefit to the public? And Elisa's suggestion was an addition to the Ponderosa Trail. My thought would be also, is there a way to really clarify pedestrian access to the bus, you know, the transit stop or RAFTA stop? I guess the assumption is people would just walk in the street, which is not a great problem unless it's winter. That street doesn't drain particularly well. I've had some ice skating adventures trying to walk on that street. So I don't know if you have, James, looks like you had thought here.
Yeah, just kind of getting back to Glenn's question. The sketch plan doesn't provide for a vested right. It just gives the applicant the ability to come back with a final plan application. You know, you could consider potentially, if it was of interest to council, you know, in your motion, you could talk about the applicant needing to study the potential for additional community benefit in exchange for the additional 2 feet as part of the final plan application. You know, that could be a thought.
So you're not locked down, Glenn, I think is the net of that.
Ryan, did you have something?
No, I was about to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt resolution number 2, series of 2021, amended with the 30-foot height restriction and the 2 additional parking spaces.
So that your draft would not approve not encourage the 2-foot height variation?
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. I'd like a little bit of discussion on this motion before we vote. I guess my message to the applicant would be that this now is says 30 feet. I think it would be wise to put your thinking caps on and respond to Gary's question when we see this next, And it looks like there are ample opportunities to improve trail access and circulation, pedestrian circulation in the area. And I guess I would devote some energy to that. Mr. Tenenbaum, you have your hand up.
Yeah, my goal was to, since it potentially, you talked about sustainability, I'd love to hear about this, more about the building sustainability overall and how, the 2-foot height increases that. I need more specifics. This is sketch plan. We can talk about this again. I'm not completely against this. I just, we do have to take neighbors and we do have to take PUDs seriously. So if there's a public benefit to a variance, between potentially what Elise asked or some sustainability, how does this do that? I understand the light thing, but is it really gonna get people to turn their lights on less? I don't know. In that area, you're facing kind of a different direction. So anyway, I want more when you bring this back to really discuss that. I'm not saying absolutely not, but I just think in your regular application, your final application, that we need to hear more and look at sustainability and public benefit overall and just put your thinking caps on and come up with something.
Yeah, I guess before I vote, I would just offer an opinion about that. I guess my gut on this would say that the 2 feet will probably translate into more attractive units that undoubtedly will provide better views and better light gathering, and there are all sorts of benefits that will come with that. And I guess, honestly, I think that the sacrifice and inconvenience that the public will suffer as a result of 2 additional feet, especially in a building with a full photovoltaic array, is kind of de minimis. But I am sympathetic to Gary's original motion. I think that, we should be maybe thinking about how we can maybe affect the overall context in the area, either through landscape, pedestrian circulation, whatever it is. I know you guys are creative and you'll think of some ideas, and I think the door is open to persuade the council on this, but I kind of appreciate where we are. We're starting from 30 feet and the burden is on you to come back and persuade us that you have a better product here. So I'm certainly open to it. I wouldn't view this motion as a closed door, but I think it's, you're getting a message here. Fair enough. Okay, Pam, I think we ought to call the roll on this.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, just one point of clarity on the motion.
Yeah.
And I guess this is more of a question for James. So this approval would be to approve on sketch plan without an approval of an amendment to the PUD. Would it be appropriate in their correct jurisdiction over an application to amend the PUD for that increased height and an amendment upon final plan approval?
So you're suggesting that instead of having the 30-foot height limit in the sketch reso, that potentially considering an adjustment to the motion to say, at final, there could be a reevaluation of the height, essentially?
I mean, maybe it'd be okay.
The context of the councilor's comments indicate that there's still an opportunity for the amendment to the PUD at final plan review. I just want to make sure that's clear to everyone, that everyone understands kind of the context of what this next land use application would look like on this project, if that's still a possibility, if this is approved without that condition.
Jeff, I think maybe what you're getting at is that if it's 30 feet and they come back, when we advertise the final plan review, we should allow for the flexibility to go up to the 32 feet if the council's happy with the community benefit portion of it. So we're not advertising it at 30 feet and then the council wants to increase the height at final.
Right, I just wanted to make sure that because the councilor's comments indicated that they're still potentially open to a 32 feet, that is still on the table on the next round of land use application. for the applicant.
And then maybe that should be part of the motion.
Well, then Ryan would have to amend it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Ryan said 30 feet. My comments were anecdotal, I think. I not suggesting that the resolution.
Fine as amended.
Yeah.
And I would second that. Like, that's my whole deal is like, let's have the conversation. Let's make sure this is the best thing that we can get. It gives the most community benefit. It gives the people who are going to live there the best environment, but it also justifies why we're giving them 2 more feet when our code is 30 feet. Like, that does need to be stated.
Yeah.
Am I allowed in this or not? I just.
Go ahead, Ramsey.
Okay, I mean, you know, if you guys are still considering this as an option, and I'm still allowed to speak in this forum here, you know, it might be a benefit to consider it now and give us a chance to explain it a little further now, as opposed to going another round. I think I did give some very good reasons for why it's of benefit to the public. You know, we're looking at a number of bedrooms, a number of occupants here. I don't want to guesstimate the occupants, but the 25, 26 people that I'm thinking I want to have a quality space for. And the ask of 2 feet is really just, you know, to support the master plan. It said, we want to support this as being a dense lot that's possibly 3 units up to 12. When I read 12, I said, hey, the master plan is indicating that they want dense housing. They want more units. They want more affordable units in Basalt. And the more I read, the more that reiterated. The 30-foot rule, I believe, was intended for a smaller building that wasn't at 30 feet. I think 32 feet, 33 feet is what is indicated in the underlying zone district that supports 3-story buildings. The normal height limit for a 3-story building is around 33 feet because it allows quality interior spaces for all 3 levels of the structure. So since we are notioning that the density is wanted, it's needed, I think that case has been made. Having the ability to have architecture that can be constructed with interior spaces that are of high quality and not have rooms that are below 8 feet for all the occupants of this building, because, you know, a building that's 65 feet away is noticing a 2-foot differential in the building height, which is sort of non-logical. I would just emphasize that I'm trying to propose this for no benefit to me, no benefit to Aaron really, but for the benefit of the occupants that move into this as the architect that's responsible for the plans and thinking about the people moving in. And at that, I'll stop discussing it and let other people comment.
So let me take these in turn. Gary, then David, and then Elise.
Well, honestly,
Mine's procedural.
well, yeah, my first one was procedural. Like, we shouldn't be doing this now in discussion on a motion. Secondly, you know, if to me, I like the way the motion is set because it gives you the option to do it. But I am not, it's gonna go vote down. You're gonna vote down this whole thing if you have to get the 32 feet now. So the reality is this is giving you the option to do it and to come back and give it to us. I don't wanna discuss it anymore tonight because I don't think you can give it all of us. So, you know, I think personally right now, I think we should take a vote on the motion. Sorry, or Elise and David can talk too for the discussion, but I don't want to have any more back and forth during the motion.
David?
Yeah, just a simple question, just the motion on the floor, we could revisit the variances for height and parking at the final application, yes or no?
Ryan, how do you feel?
I said as amended, so I'm fine with that.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Setting a baseline.
That's why I raised my hand during the discussion there a minute ago.
Elise, did you have a comment?
Well, I just wanted to make sure that I understand that rather than having a first reading and a second reading as we normally do with an item like this, we're doing a first sketch plan reading and then a second final plan reading. Is that the procedure, Jeff?
We have a sketch plan now. It's a two-step review, and then they'll come and submit another application. So
Susan, I cannot understand you. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Susan, you sound awful. The ability for an applicant to submit a combined sketch and final plan, and all the teams, and Susan, correct me if I'm wrong. However, this is, under this procedure, they're only now seeking a sketch plan review, and then we'll need to come back for final review with more fully fleshed out plans. The sketch plan allows them to go forward, and the policy reason is that before you sink a ton of money in developing a plan, you'll have indication to council that this is a project that the council supports.
And at that time, at the
But is
final
that
plan.
equivalent to a first and second reading?
No, this is just a resolution. It's just one reading. It doesn't give him any vested rights or anything. When he comes back at final, the action will be taken at an ordinance, which will require the first reading and the second reading. So that's when you have the first and the second. So this is really simple. It's a resolution, and it says really clearly that it's not giving any vested rights or anything. When he does the ordinance, you'll actually grant him vested rights if you approve it.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much.
So to restate the motion, which has been moved and seconded, it moves to approve resolution number 2 of 2021 with the provision of a 30-foot height limitation for the building. And what was the second provision for parking, Ryan?
The 2 tandem spots.
Okay. So that's the motion that has been moved and approved and been seconded. So if there are no further comments, I think we take action on that. I think we've given sufficient direction to the applicant. They can kind of read the tea leaves here. James?
Just a clarification on that. Ryan amended his motion to say that there could be consideration at the final of adjustments to that.
Correct, as amended.
Okay. Is that copacetic with the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. Who was the seconder?
Me.
Glenn was. Okay, good enough. So, Pam, please call the roll.
All right. Let's begin with Gary Tenenbaum.
Yes.
Elise Hoddle.
Yes, with reservations.
Yes, thank you. Bill Kane.
Yes.
Thank you. David Knight.
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Thank you. And Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Great, thank you. So moving on, our next order of business is item number 6C, resolution number 3, series of 2020. It's a resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving a grant agreement with the Hope Center for Mental Health Services. Ryan.
Yeah, so we actually have Michelle Muthing here on the line as well. There she is. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, she can answer any questions we might have. I'll just present this. As you likely recall, in December, we presented to the council some ideas for grant funding coming out of our tobacco tax. And we had been working with both the school district and with the Hope Center for some time. And finally came to agreement at the staff level, and that idea was that in accord with the ballot language, supporting mental health services for folks in the Basalt community was a good alignment. And we know that in our past experiences with the Hope Center. We've created partnerships with the police department, and then, you know, a sort of a three-way between the school district as well. And so what this would do is provide $150,000 of grant funding for the Hope Center for 3 years. Of course, for the subsequent second and third year, that would be subject to annual appropriation by the town council. And the purpose of the money would be to provide financial assistance for therapy. So anybody in the town would have access to therapy through the Hope Center. Also the Hope line, so that's a 24-hour crisis line that somebody's able to call if they are in crisis, and would be able to get a live person and talk to them. And then also for crisis response, and that's you know, something that has been invaluable to us thus far, and we would like to continue and enhance. But when there is a crisis in the community, for example, a car accident where there might be a fatality, you know, the idea is that the police really need to be concentrating on their job, doing what they do best in securing an area, and making sure that you know, traffic is flowing and that people are safe and they can do their investigation. And the Hope Center would be able to step in and you know, help those families that are being contacted. And so that's just one example. But you know, staff is fully supportive of this, and I think it's a real community benefit. We know it's something that is you know, an issue across the country, and I just think that the town of Basalt is extremely fortunate that we would be able to assist the community with mental health services. So with that, Michelle, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, you covered all three aspects, and they are alive and well in Basalt every day, for sure.
Great.
That's great. So, Mayor, we will address the school funding next, but this is the resolution to support the Hope Center specifically on this first one.
All right, thank you. So questions of council on resolution number 3 in our grant agreement with Hope Center?
I move to approve resolution number 3.
Again.
Okay, moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Right. Let's begin with Elise Hoddle.
Yes.
Thank you. Gary Tenenbaum.
Yes.
Thank you. Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you. David Knight.
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Kane.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you so very much. And I'll provide reports as the year goes on, just to let you know our numbers and volume and what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Great. Look forward to it. Our next order of business is resolution number 4, series of 2021. So this is our resolution for the Town Council of Basalt approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Roaring Fork School District for the mental and behavioral health program at Basalt Elementary School. So, and Nicole is here. Ryan, do you want to recap this one?
Sure. If you may recall, on the same evening, we also talked about a discussion that we had, you know, dating back to the early part of 2020, whereby the school was looking at a valley-wide effort to provide, you know, better services for mental health within their school district. And we met with the town of Carbondale, city of Glenwood Springs, talked to those managers, and you know, I think hopefully what we're looking at is that this agreement here could be a first step for the district to get additional funding throughout the valley. But really they want to have that mental health support at each school, each grade level, if you will. And right now there's a gap in the elementary school. And so providing this $100,000 of funding would allow the school district to kind of meet that need in the elementary school. Right now, Eagle County provides $160,000 or $160,000 of funding, and that goes to help support the mental health services that are in the Basalt Middle School and High School. So this really lets them meet that goal, and is again sort of that three-way partnership. We have a police officer in the school. The Hope Center is there providing services, and they also provide some financial support. So just a really good regional model that we hope can be duplicated, but we'll be the first out the gate here. So Anna, I don't know if you have any other comments?
No, you covered it all, Ryan. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions if there are them.
Great. Chief, I'm sorry, Mayor, I just wanted to see if Chief had anything that I might have missed with some of the discussion.
No, I think you covered everything well. Thank you.
Okay.
Any questions from council of Ryan, Anna, Chief? All right, we'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move the town council adopt
Mayor.
resolution number 4, series of 2021.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Pam, please call the roll.
Gladly. Okay, let's begin with Gary Tenenbaum.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's go to Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Kane.
Yes.
Thank you. Elise Hoddle.
Yes.
Thank you. David Knight.
Yes.
Thank you. And Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you,
Anna.
Council.
We'll move now to resolution number, item 6E, resolution number 5, series of 2021, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, adopting an amended public health order regarding face coverings. Ryan and Jeff, I can't believe it's January already. We got to do this again.
That's right. 3 months have passed.
Yeah, we've got COVID be gone by now.
Not yet. Hopefully soon enough. So, yeah, as you know, we are, this would be our 5th extension of the face covering resolution. We started the first, I believe at the early part of May 2020, and the pandemic is still with us, and the scientific data is getting stronger, basically supporting the use of face coverings, specifically when you're indoors and unable to social distance. And so as part of, our effort here locally to keep folks protected until we can get a vaccine distributed throughout the community, we want to keep this in place for another 3 months. And so the expiration, I believe, would be at the end of April. So we'd have to bring it back and have that discussion at that time. But otherwise, things remain the same within the resolution itself.
Okay. So questions of council?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 5.
Second.
Pam?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Elise Hoddle.
Yes.
Thank you. Ryan Slack.
Yes.
Thank you. Bill Kane.
Yes.
Thank you. Gary Tenenbaum.
Yes.
Thank you. David Knight.
Yes.
Thank you. And Glenn Drummond.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you all. I think that concludes our agenda for tonight. Unless there's another whole sheet of paper I missed here, but I don't think so. I think that's our council for tonight. So thanks everyone. Appreciate the hard work, and we'll keep at this. You know, one little aside I have to, Ryan, that maybe we pass on our compliments to Eagle County and Pitkin County for the incredibly well-organized vaccination programs that are rolling out. If there are limits or frustration, it's not their fault. We're just not getting the vaccinations from the feds. So, but looks like that's improving. So, you know, we're making some pretty good headway, and hopefully we'll be through this tier 1B soon and get people going. So, I think we should pass on our compliments to both Pitkin and Eagle County public health officers.
Will do.
Anything else, guys? Thank you very much. Have fun.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Be careful
Thank
out
you.
there.
Good night. Thank you.